Hello, and thank you for coming to our Tuesday evening workshop. And we're going to kick things off with Director Healy. I guess if you can, I just introduced you, but if you can explain who you are, and then please continue.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Bill Healy. I'm the Chief Assessor for the City of Lewiston. I've been here 9 years, and we've been trying to get funding for a revaluation project in place, and we finally have it in place. It is much needed at this point, and my presentation tonight will show that why it's required. With that being said, I'd like to start with the state of Maine assessing standards. The maximum assessment ratio is 110%. The minimum is 70%. And of course, ideal is 100. So if we just use a $100,000 home as an example, basic math, the maximum assessment would be $110,000. Minimum would be $70,000. Of course, ideal would be 100. I always like to show this slide as part of a presentation because it shows how the tax rate is calculated. It's a mathematical calculation. It's the net to be raised by property tax divided by the total taxable valuation. I get it questioned a lot, and you probably will too. What do you do with all the extra money from the reval? It's important to point out there is no extra money. It's if you increase the taxable valuation, the net to be raised doesn't change. Increased taxable valuation reduces the tax rate. With the way values are going right now, I see that as a significant reduction. And as you can see, last year we had to raise $64,760,000 divided by $2.15 billion in taxable valuation. We arrived at a tax rate of $30 per thousand. I welcome any questions anytime. I tend to talk fast. I'll try to go slow tonight. So state law requires that exemptions in personal property are factored by the city's certified ratio. And that ratio has to be within 10% of the state calculated assessment ratio. So for fiscal 24, the state calculated our assessment ratio at 66%. I can tell you honestly, it's going to be lower than that for fiscal 25. I already know that. We haven't got the number from the state yet. Because we're allowed to pick a certified ratio that's 10% higher, we went with 73% this year.
Question?
Sure.
What is the advantage going 10% higher, or
Well,
disadvantage, I guess?
The state allows us that, and it allows us to give a greater exemption value for veterans and homesteads, and you'll see it on this slide here. Each time we have to factor it down because the state will only reimburse us to that percentage. So as you can see in fiscal 22, $25,000 homestead by our certified ratio was $20,250. In fiscal 23, it was $19,500, and in fiscal 24, it's $18,250. I'm really hoping that it won't be that much less this year, but I can't promise that because, like I said, I'm not sure what the ratio is going to be yet for the upcoming tax year. Okay, I'm having a little, there we go. Okay, moving forward. So what I wanted to show you here was the assessment ratio by property class. And this is important because 41% of our tax base is residential, and that's at 66% according to the state for fiscal 24. 33% of our tax base, including multifamily, 4 units and up, is 33% and 74% assessment ratio. Industrial properties were also at 74%, and that comprises 5% of our taxable valuation base. And utilities are 21% at 90% assessment ratio. The reason those numbers are important is when we get to the revaluation, some of the tax base is going to shift. Unfortunately, it'd be more towards the residential base, but we're closer than we were a year ago because last year it was a 10% difference between commercial and residential. What I wanted to show you here was the state calculates our full equalized value and what we show for a value. And even though our tax rate, let me explain, the state is always a couple of years behind. That's why I don't have the most recent numbers. But for fiscal 23, the state said our valuation was $2.6 billion. We had $2.1 billion. And as you can see, if we had been at full value, our tax rate would have been much lower than $28.50. And what I did is I ran that for 5 years so you could see that even though we're saying our tax rate is between $28.67, $28.50, and $30, our effective rate is actually less if we're at full value.
Question, Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Those.
Want me to go back?
Yes, please. Those city valuations include all properties, tax exempt and taxable, is that correct?
That is just taxable.
Just
And
taxable.
And the reason the state number is different is they factor back in the TIFs, homestead exemption, and business equipment tax exemption, which we do not. That's excluded from our valuation.
But in any case, the tax exempt properties are not included
They are
in
not
either
included.
calculation.
Yeah, we have 500+ million in tax exempt property,
Close to 25% of the valuation.
close to 25%
Okay.
of our total municipal valuation.
Thank you.
What I wanted to do is show you a couple examples of where we're at today and where we would be if our values were at what is deemed to be fair market value. So a current valuation of 150, we reduce by the homestead exemption, we end up with a net taxable of 131,750. We multiply that by the $30 tax rate and come up with a tax levy of $3,952. If we were at fair market value, the value would be approximately $227,000. The homestead would be the full $25,000, and for a net taxable of $2,023. And when you multiply that by, so we reduce the tax rate by 34%, right, if we were at full value, would be a $4,005 tax bill. I think the point I'm trying to make here is if the tax rate decreases at approximately the same rate as the value increases, your taxes will remain nearly the same. And the reason why that's important is because in a revaluation year, it's so important to try to keep the budgets as close and tight as possible so we don't see major increases for the taxpayers. And again, that's my recommendation, not you guys have that decision, not me. And what I did here is I showed you what would happen if you only went 5%, right? So instead of going 66%, you used the ratio of 71. So instead of reducing by 34, we reduced by 29. And you can see the impact. So we got $3,952 for tax. If we increase by 5%, the tax levy goes to $4,300. And again, if the tax rate decreases at a percentage less than the valuation, property taxes will increase. What I'd like to show you now is an example of a commercial property. And again, what I'm trying to show here is that this class of property is assessed at a ratio that is higher than residential. So they're at 74% instead of the 66% that residential's at. If we had a current valuation of $800,000 for commercial, multiplied by our $30 tax rate, their tax bill is $24,000. If we reduce their value, increase their value by dividing the number by 66%, that's how you determine fair market value. You take the current assessment divided by the assessment ratio and come up with $1,081,000. The tax rate in 1980, you can see the tax bill will drop by about $3,000. Yes?
So I guess my question would be, if I look at residential and commercial, they're obviously gonna get a nice cut, well, we may see a slight increase. What does that do overall? Because at the end of the year, if you combine the two together and we're short $1 million, let's say, just because the reevaluation, who then pays for that extra million? For us
Okay.
to go our budget?
Okay, so we're not going to be short because we're going to have the same amount of money. So you're going to tell me you need to raise $64 million and my tax base could be $2.6 billion at that rate. What we'll probably see, and I'm hoping that we won't because things are getting closer. I'm seeing more and more commercial sales that are showing a ratio that's closer to the residential. As long as that isn't too far off, then there shouldn't be that much of a shift. But all we're doing is equalizing the tax burden. So we're spreading out the fair distribution of the tax burden to all property classes. So it may be that the residential sees a slight increase over commercial, but again, what I'm hoping is that that's not the case because we're starting to see more and more commercial activity that shows a ratio closer to the 66% that the residential is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And now, just moving on to the timeline for the reval, some important dates I want to point out is they're actually going to be starting the residential data collection at the end of this month. I've been holding meetings with Tyler. We're going over the process. We're coming up with the revaluation guidelines for the project. I am very involved at this point. They're the ones that are going to do all the inspections. But ultimately, what they come back to me and the assessing team, we go over the numbers, we determine what the final assessments will be. I think the important point, again, is that the final review of residential and commercial is going to be February of 2026 to April 2026. We're going to send out valuation notices to the taxpayers at that point. And then they'll have the opportunity, every taxpayer will have the opportunity to meet with Tyler and/or my staff on an informal basis before the bills go out. So then if there's any issues that need to be corrected, we'd much rather take care of those before the billing. After the billing, it becomes a formal process of appeal, deadlines. I'd much rather, let's get things corrected before the bills go out. And finally, the new assessed values will be the basis for the fiscal 2027 tax bills. And that's when the taxpayers will first see the changes.
Mr. Healy, could we go back to the assessment ratio by property class?
Sure.
I want to restate what you said so I'm sure that I understand it. The residential class, which affects most of us in
Yep.
Lewiston,
Mm-hmm.
has a longer way to go to get to 100%. So there will be a greater impact on that than there will be on the utilities, which are very close to 100% now. Is that a fair restatement?
That is a fair restatement.
Okay, thank you,
You're welcome.
thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you. I'm not sure that the general public is aware that you have just been made vice president of the, and I'm going to get this wrong, the National Association of Municipal Tax Assessors?
Actually, International Association of Assessors. Yeah,
International.
yeah.
All right, well, congratulations. I am honored to have you as our assessor, Mr. Healy, and I want everyone to know that this is a new job that you've taken on, and it entails international recognition. So congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We are very proud of you, and if there's a fancy dinner, please invite me.
I will do that.
Further questions from Councilor Glenn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we start into this rollout and people start going around doing the inspections, are we, and this may be more directed towards our administrator over there, going to forewarn people?
So-
How is that process going to work?
Glad to answer that. So we actually have a process. There's going to be a revaluation website dedicated strictly to the Lewiston reval. I'm working closely with our marketing director, and we're getting the wording correct on the website. And what will be on there is the individuals that are doing the inspections, their names, their photos, and their make of vehicle. So people will know, and also where they're going to be at a given point in time. So we don't want to string, we don't want to surprise anybody. We want to be as open as fair as possible and make sure that people understand these individuals from Tyler are out there doing their job, and just be aware.
Administrator Hunter, when do we anticipate that website being live, so to speak?
I know the draft has been published. I know they were wrapping up and doing some tweaking, so I'm assuming it would be by the end of this week, early next week would be the goal.
Excellent, thank you. Councilor Chittum?
I know that the tax base includes, or at least the assessment data on the website includes some limited interior descriptions. Will Tyler be going inside residents' homes, or are they merely doing an exterior?
No, that's a great question. We are going to try to get in every home. The taxpayers do not have to let us in their homes. If they don't feel comfortable, that's understood. It behooves them to let us in so we don't have to estimate, because it's better for us to know exactly what's in there than have to guess. And we're going to try to drive that home.
Thank you.
Further questions from the council? Administrator Hunter, could you perhaps outline for us the public education component to all of this, or what the plan is?
Right now, we are planning on, and we are working on the details of that at this point, but it would begin with the release of the website. Then we are looking at doing a variety of forums. We've even talked about doing some, video of our Director Healy on explaining, frequently asked questions, things like that. So those will be rolling out through the whole process. We don't want to start with everything right out of the gate and then have people forget about it. So if we, pepper things throughout the entire process, hopefully it keeps the information fresh. People understand what's going on, and they know how to contact us if they have any questions.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Glenn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will there be an opportunity for people to request an inspection in a time frame to make things easier for both sides?
Absolutely. So what's going to happen is Tyler is going to go out and do their inspections. If nobody's home, they're going to send that property owner a letter saying, we went to your home, you weren't there to answer, or we will not enter if there's no adult there. adult property owner at the residence. They'll have the opportunity to schedule an appointment, which we'll be offering some nights and weekends to make it easier for the taxpayers. We understand that not everybody can be home between 8 and 5 or 8 and 4:30. And to just circle back on what you asked the City Administrator Hunter, I actually have my first presentation scheduled for March 18th with the Lewiston seniors at the Armory.
Councilor Glant, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Follow-up, I mean, I think of snowbirds, you know, if you had something on your website that said, if you'd like to schedule your appointment because you may not be whatever, would give a person an opportunity to reach out to you all and say, you know, I'm going to be home till September. After September, you're out of luck. I mean, I'm just thinking, trying to think that way.
That would be a great idea, something to add to the website. Certainly, we could do that. And I'm sure that's one of those things that we would have thought of eventually, but thanks for bringing it up, because we understand that some people will not be around. And if you mail them a letter, they still might not be home, so, okay. Yep.
Anything further, Director?
No, just getting ready for, ramp up the process, and things are going to start happening pretty quickly, so excited to get started.
Well, a huge shout out to you and your staff, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're ready for our next workshop. Oh, okay, all right.
I don't have a PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're good. Please introduce yourself and continue.
Wonderful. My name is Nicole Welch. I'm the Recreation Director, and I'm here to talk about the creation of a scholarship policy. Right now, there's no formal policy for Lewiston Recreation Department programs regarding scholarship, financial assistance, and et cetera. The draft that you were sent along with the council packet, it is what it is. It's a draft one. There are hundreds of different ways to do a municipal recreation department scholarship policy. I've worked with several different forms over the years. A lot of the ideas behind them have changed. It's all about reducing barriers, increasing financial transparency, and really about getting the kids and the young folks the programs and services they want without kind of creating any more hardships or boundaries and or other challenges in general. So really there's kind of a couple goals behind this scholarship policy specifically. Number one, we wanted to create a policy that helps outline the procedures involved. And number two, start highlighting the program in general in hopes to attract potential donors or sponsors. For those of you who looked over the policy, you'll notice that right now we've just kind of put $1,000 in annually. And I'll get to that in a couple of minutes when we get down to the bottom of the page. I have a couple of areas I'm going to highlight as part of the conversation, but if you have questions specifically that I don't talk about, again, feel free to jump in wherever you want. The first section I wanted to highlight was the Scholarship Award Committee. Listed right now, it says it's comprised of the Recreation Director, Recreation Coordinator, or other qualified city staff as required. Given the dollar amount that we're playing with right now, which is about $1,000 annually, I feel in general that having the Recreation Department oversee that with general assistance as needed might be okay at this time. We're not dealing with any federal funds or state funds. All of it's really generated through concession stands, through arts and crafts, raffles, and it's all locally generated money. Ideally, in 2 to 3 years, we could revisit this, and maybe there is federal money or CDBG money that's available, in which case I would totally be on board with welcoming more members of the community to kind of help dole out that money, as needed. I also did a quick survey with a couple of other recreation departments. I reached out to 20 total, asking them who was on their awards committee. 20 of them said that they were all part of recreation staff, and there was one that worked with general assistance directly to award folks funding, and there was one that had their rec committee specifically do that, just to kind of give you a frame of reference. The second section I wanted to highlight was the scholarship application procedure. This is pretty standard as far as what municipal recreation departments would ask for as far as a scholarship application. We would create the generic document on our side, and we'd also request other documents that show that there's some need. Maybe they're already receiving some funding somewhere else. Maybe they're getting general assistance, food stamps. It really helps paint the picture of what the family is going through, and can also maybe highlight ways that we could help them find extra funding if we know that there's an extra service that could pair well with something that they're already receiving. The next area I wanted to highlight was the scholarship award procedure, which on the second page. So this highlights that we would like to start off with 2 award cycles, one June 1st through December 31st, and then a second January 1st through June 30th. We would start with a maximum of $500 awarded per cycle. Again, in an ideal world, we would have, $10,000 we could hand out annually. But right now, because of the money that we're generating through our in-house scholarship, in-house fundraisers, that's really all we can kind of prepare for at least the next fiscal year. The scholarship awards would be based on income guidelines created using the current year's federal poverty level. This is another example of, depending on which recreation department you go to in Maine, everybody does it differently. I know Bangor just decides, based on the documents they have, they just do a 20% to 60% fee reduction or scholarship. There are some that use a very specific sliding scale that show percentages to income and members in the household and such. I have created a sliding scale that we could be using for this to at least give us some frame of reference of kind of where to start for families, but also knowing that we're not going to be giving out $1,000 summer camp scholarships. Right now, the intent is to just waive some of the fees for our basic introductory programs, say an $80 soccer program or a $30 field hockey program, just to take a little bit more of the financial stress off of those families, but then still be able to cover our costs on the other side. I think those are the biggest pieces that I have. Were there any questions specifically about the policy or any other additions you like?
Councilor Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the first question I have is, nowhere in here does it say where they can use the money? Better be for school, just give them a $500 check, they can go do what they want?
No, it would be specifically for recreation department sponsored programs.
So they can use it in-house?
For a recreation program,
For the
yep,
activities and things that you're gonna be doing?
yes,
Talk about rec activities?
yep. I can make sure that's clarified in the beginning.
Because I couldn't, I was trying to figure out what we're using it for, and then how they can use it in that department. That's the only question I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
So you mentioned that this would not be used to help reduce the cost of summer camp. Did I hear you correctly?
Yep, and I'd be happy to talk about that. So given the $1,000 limit we have, summer camp right now with an early bird discount is $950 for a 7-week program. So with the $1,000.
For how many week program?
7 weeks.
7 week,
Yeah,
900.
and so we'd only be able to sponsor one child and then maybe half of another registration, so.
But if there was more money, then we could consider that.
Oh, completely, yep.
Okay. Councilor Longchamps.
So, are you saying that all you have is $1,000, or you just, that's the limit, or is that all you have?
Yep, that's all that we have. There's been, yeah, so it's all just generated through our in-house programs. We've talked about having the next Jeans Day that we have for the city. One of it is going to be going towards our Armory Hoops League, which is a free program for Tree Street, Root Cellar Boys and Girls Club, and us, so a chunk will be there. And then often in the summertime, a portion of that can also go towards the Kennedy Park Pool, but we've talked specifically earmarking the next round for additional funds for the scholarship fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Chittum.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Couple of questions. This would be a recreation department policy, not a city policy, is that correct?
It would be a city policy. It would probably be under the master under the master policies.
Okay, all right, thank you. Where are the funds for this held?
They are currently held in the Recreation Department's special revenue account.
All right, thank you. What is the ratio of applicants to recipients? What's the history been?
Right now, we haven't, so I'm coming up on my 3 anniversary, and we haven't gone through a scholarship process, so I can't speak more recently. I can tell you for summer camp, we probably get between 8 and 15 calls for the last couple of years, trying to get some sort of financial assistance. I would say per every sports season, probably 2 to 5 phone calls asking, do you have financial assistance opportunities?
All right, and is it the policy that you would be awarding $500 to a recipient, or maybe $100 to 5 recipients each?
Probably the second choice. With looking at the sliding scale, they would qualify to either 25, 50, or 70% scholarship. And we can, again, depending on how many applicants we have, how much funding we have left over from the previous seasons. If so, say once we hit July 1 or the next funding season, if we see 3 or 4 soccer scholarship requests come in, we would probably do our due diligence to make that each of them had a portion of that $500, but hopefully holding some because we know basketball season's right around the corner as well.
I see. So it's not an easy program to manage.
It's not, and I think the biggest hurdle right now is just the amount of money that we have access to. So this is kind of part 1. I'm hope to be revisiting you guys in a couple of months talking about our sponsorship program. So that will give other people the opportunity to either do banners in the armory, sponsor sports teams, sponsor more recreation events, to hopefully bring in more money to see this, this pot go up a little bit. I think that the finances are kind of the biggest hurdle here. If we had more money, we'd be able to service more kids.
How come you answered my question before I asked it?
I have a magic 8 ball here somewhere.
Because that was my next question. The last question is, I see there's a question and a comment. There's a 17-year age cutoff. Where did that number come from?
18-year-olds is an adult. So I guess we could change it to, well, no, because we hire 18-year-olds as well, so,
Would under 18 do the same thing?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd suggest that. And then
Okay.
finally, I went on your website looking for the application and the information that's listed in the numbers under the scholarship application procedure. Could not find it. I ran into a 404 error. So there's a little bit of work that needs to be done to the website.
Okay.
I would encourage you to make this process as simple as possible. The people who are going to apply for this typically are not going to have a lot of patience with paperwork. So the simple, and I understand the need to establish that need is there so that this money can be distributed equitably, but I would encourage you to make the whole application process as simple as possible. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Administrator Hunter, or, maybe Director. So if companies choose to, I understand that there's going to be some sponsorship document, menu, so to speak, going forward, but is there a way for companies to donate and get a tax write-off? Are they able to make a charitable contribution to this?
Most definitely. We have that ability now. On the city's website, there's the shopping cart menu option. We did that same thing when we were collecting donations for Franklin Pasture way back when. You may be familiar with the lighting globes that we did around the holidays. So it is.
I was there at the time.
Exactly. So there is that shopping cart availability. There has been a standing recreation scholarship donation. Again, it's not well publicized because we really didn't have a policy in place to move forward with that. But at any point in time, any business, any individual is most welcome to send funds into us and specify either with a notation on the check or a letter specifically addressing that this is to be used for that program. And we can furnish, if they need an independent letter back acknowledging that receipt for tax purposes, we can make that work.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can when we started a few years back, we went to potentially charge for the pool, and a lot of businesses stepped forward. We definitely have a caring business community who I would like to think right now would love to get involved. So if we had, if there could be outreach surrounding that, I think that would be huge. We'd most definitely be able to grow this current $1,000 pot. Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. I don't know if you have this number off the top of your head, but in an ideal world with all the money that you could imagine, how much would it cost to just make all of the recreation programs cost-free for residents? Would that be like
It's a tough number.
$100,000 or-
Trying to maybe break it down by a program to give you an idea. I'm going to use soccer, for example, just our fall soccer program. We have about, depending on the season, between 80 and 100 kiddos. The price varies from $55 to $85, depending on what services are needed. Typically for the older kids, we're paying for more referees and such. Also in that comes costs for any first aid equipment. We have to pay for field prep, field lining, porta potties, t-shirts, any training that we need to do, soccer balls, soccer goals, soccer nets, and all that. So that program itself probably costs about $16,000 when you bring in the money and kind of spend money out too. But that's kind of a floating number. For summer camp, we're looking, and again, I don't want to say numbers out loud. I'll be talking to you guys in a couple weeks about more specifically, but I'd have a better number for that right there.
No,
Yeah.
that helps having that for the soccer program.
Okay.
And I was going to say, are you going to be putting in an ask in the budget for some more money to strengthen this scholarship fund, or are you just looking for donations right now?
Right now, we're just looking for donations. I've been working with Director Roy about cleaning up some of the accounting stuff on our side to make it really seamless. And I think when we do our presentation for recreation, you'll see hopefully the revenue for the $1,000 and then a projected expense of $1,000. But that's all, relative to what we're seeing right now and what we were seeing a week ago. Hopefully, if we get a policy written and we can really recruit some donors, we can go into next budget season planning on maybe $5,000 and kind of plan a little bit more ahead.
Okay, thanks. And I hope we can, thank you for bringing this forward, because I think it's important for kids to have access to our recreation programs, and anything we can do to make it more equitable for families who are financially struggling, I think is important. So thanks.
So how many, you mentioned summer camp. We changed names. It's not Camp Smiles anymore. What is it?
We just went to Lewiston Recreation Summer Camp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're all still smiling.
Oh, they are, yeah.
So how many slots do we have for summer camp?
For campers or for staff?
Campers.
Campers, we'll really just start to see the big tick probably after March. March 1st or so, we'll start to see more. Last year we brought in about 100 full-time campers, which are ones who sign up for the entire 7 weeks, and that's ranging from grades kindergarten through 8th grade. Last year we saw right around 72 pick-a-weekers, where they just sign up for one individual week of camp. Some folks do 1 to 3 camps or 1 to 3 weeks, because that's all they need, and they do specialty camps otherwise. But then others just kind of rely on it for childcare as well.
Okay, so let's say of the 100 people, some of them are not paying the $950, like some of them are less because they're only picking certain camps.
Yes, and some of them are more because we do have a non-resident fee as well.
Ah, okay. All right. Councilor Glant.
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have a sliding scale based on income. In a lot of cities, places I've worked and been to before, offer a scale where they come in with their parents' income or their situation, whatever it is, and it's prorated. So $900 is for the average person. We determine whatever it is they can pay, and somebody below that could be paying $600, $500. Is that incorporated in this system currently?
It's not, because everything that comes in for the summer camp program essentially just goes out. We don't bring in a lot of extra money because of the other expenses that we have to kind of cover as well. So hopefully, maybe if we start thinking of the scholarship program in kind of the same light as a fee waiver program. So that way, if we have the extra money coming in to help to maybe provide a sliding scale, that's something we can look at in the future if we can find some more funding.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Chittum?
Yes, being new to this process, I'm not certain. Are you going to show us your revenues when you come before the council for budget discussions?
Is that in the? Yes, it will be on there.
Okay, so that'll be broken down presumably by scholarship donations and fees for services.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and you'll see expenses and everything as well.
Good, that'll give us an idea of just how well used the program is.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So when do you anticipate the scholarship award team or committee or whatever we're calling it to meet for this first cycle?
So, so after this, I'll go back and make some edits, and then in a couple of weeks, I'll come back and we'll have to formally adopt the policy. And then once we have that, we can start advertising it for that first round of scholarships, which will start in the next fiscal year. So right now, we're kind of neatening up all of our summer and fall programs. And once we have those and make those open to the public, then we'll start pushing out the $500 opportunity. But if there's more money coming in before then we can have the conversation and see what that looks like.
Right, so I understand that this needs to be approved at a council meeting, but as soon as we can get the information out to businesses so we can get their donation.
Yeah.
Councilor Najin.
I just want to check on one thing really quickly. You had mentioned that you have employees that start as young as 18 for the rec department. Do you have any type of like work share that you do for folks that are like between the ages of like 16 and 18 or anything like that?
Yeah, we actually hire as young as 14.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That was one thing I wanted to check on. And I would like to mention as well that while certainly businesses are a good source of donation revenue, I would also suggest to reach out to the general public as well. So, yep, exactly.
Further questions from the council? Anything else, Director Welsh?
No, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes our Tuesday workshops, and we're going to start the council meeting at 7. Hello, and thank you for coming out to our Tuesday evening council meeting. We're going to be kicking things off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have our Chief Assessor, Bill Healy, here, and he will lead us. Thank you very much, Mr. Healy. If we can have Neil Kiley, President of Androscoggin Bank, and Chris Thompson from Thompson's Point join me at the front here for a presentation. And yes, Neil Kiley, President of Androscoggin Bank.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by personally thanking this council, the mayor, Heather, and the entire team of the city for your incredible leadership and service to those dark days last fall and the ongoing recovery efforts. Like so many Lewiston-based businesses, we were directly impacted by those events. We had colleagues who lost friends and family or otherwise experienced the trauma of those multiple days. So it was an absolute privilege when the city reached out and asked us to be part of the process to help collect funds on behalf of the victims. Tonight, I'm proud to introduce one of the many groups of Mainers who came together and literally opened their hearts to our community by making incredible efforts to raise funds on behalf of the victims. So I'd like to introduce Chris Thompson and his team.
Thank you all very much, and thank you all for having us tonight. I grew up in Lewiston, Auburn. This is the place that helped me understand what it means to be part of a community, and I've always been grateful for that. I'm one of the owners and developers of the Hampton Inn here, just a couple of blocks away. Really excited to have our team, Allison Bean, our intrepid general manager, and her whole team from the Hampton here with us tonight, and Kelly Kerrigan and my business partner Jed Trobe from Thompson's Point. Like so many of us who were impacted either directly or indirectly from the horrifying events here in Lewiston in October, a couple days afterwards I was thinking, wonder what we could do to be helpful, supportive, you know, what might there be that we could do. I started to send a text to old friend and artist and visionary Charlie Hewitt, another Lewiston native who you all know is the man behind the hopeful sign. No sooner had I hit send on the text that I got one right back from Charlie that he was writing in real time back to me, saying same thing, like I wonder what we could do to help raise some funds and support the families and victims. That led to the idea of doing a fundraiser event at Thompson's Point in Portland. Reached out to Jed immediately, no question, absolutely, let's make it happen. Reached out to Kelly Kerrigan, who runs our sales and events team. Same response, yes, let's do it. She and our team, who's here tonight, dropped everything and made it happen. Over the course of less than 2 weeks, put together an amazing event with great community support. Everybody we reached out to, from the Boulis Company, Baxter Brewing, Mass Landing, Sacred Profane, Bissell Brothers, Androscoggin Bank, who came on board as a sponsor for the event and also to help handle all the finances of the raffle and the silent auction and all these other amazing event components that our team put together. Just an amazing outpouring of support for Lewiston, Auburn, and the families here. So really grateful to have been able to be part of it and to do something small to help out for those who need it. So with that, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Kelly Kerrigan, who really is the quarterback of this whole effort, to say a few words and most importantly to share the check.
As Chris mentioned, my name is Kelly Kerrigan. I'm the director of events at Thompson's Point in Portland. So as Chris mentioned, our team kind of came together. We reached out to a bunch of Portland and beyond local businesses that were willing to give gift cards, tickets, anything like that to help raise money. We ended up doing about 60 raffle ticket auction items, as well as 20 silent auction items and 4 live auction items. With all of those auction items, we were able to raise about $37,000. In conjunction with that, we had a lot of vendors that sold T-shirts and food to the people and participants that did come to support. They ended up donating their proceeds as well, which was about another $14,000, totaling us just at about $51,000 and a little bit over. So we're really proud to be able to be a support system for everyone in this area and be proud to be from the state of Maine.
If we have a couple more minutes, I'd love to invite Charlie Hewitt, who's here with us tonight, just to close us up.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone, and Mayor and councilors, thanks for what you did. It's unimaginable, your kindness and understanding and being there for everyone. It's such an honor that my hopeful is made here, that the hopeful is made here in Lewiston, that the light that goes all over the country is made here by the decent, hardworking, authentic people at New York Craft Sign. They represent me, my family, and my instincts and my courage. It all came from this community, and I'll forever be indebted to you for it. Now, hopeful has become an old flag, hasn't it? It survived the pandemic, this awful event, but it's still lit, and it's still lighted, and it still will guide us. I love Lewiston. I love you for what you've gone through, what you've always been here for me, and thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much to each of you. We are honored by your efforts and by this fundraising amount. Thank you so much. We're going to grab a quick photo if I can get the counselors to stand up.
We're going to have you in the middle. Yep. We're going to have the city councilors who can get in. There you go. You might have to, oh, there you go.
Bring me in.
There you go. There you go. So it's going to be a video, maybe a couple photos. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. One more. There you go. Over there. Ready? There you go. 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. See you.
Charlie. Thank you very much.
All right, see you guys later. See ya.
Madam Clerk, I think we are ready to begin.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll continue the meeting. We will notice that there are 2 items on the agenda for presentations that we will not be holding this evening. The presentation to the Lewiston Regional Technical Center Skills USA winners will be postponed until mid-March, and the Lewiston Leads presentations will be scheduled at the next meeting. And then for this evening, all roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Councilor of Ward 4.
I understand we have minutes.
We do, the minutes of January 23rd.
May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Councilor Harriman,
Second?
second by Councilor Roy. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Word 5?
Yes.
Word 6?
Yes.
Word 7?
Yes.
Word 1?
Yes.
Word 2?
Yes.
Word 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are now up to public comment. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. This period is reserved for non-agenda items. Public comment is also allowed during individual agenda items. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name for the record, and please indicate if you are a Lewiston resident. Because this is the business meeting of the City Council, all questions should be directed to the mayor, who will ask staff to follow up at a future time. It is illegal for the City Council to allow comments related to personnel matters. All personnel complaints should be made directly to the City Administration Office. Please continue.
Hi, I'm Billie Jane Cook, resident of Ward 5 here in Lewiston. I know that there's an agenda item coming up for the warming center. In coordination with that, I would like to say that this is a reminder. While there's an agenda item coming up tonight, it's almost mid-February. Please don't forget that summer and the need for cooling centers is coming, and winter will in fact be coming again later this year. Everyone on the council will be here for almost 2 years, some for 3, and there's no excuse to not be planning for these ongoing needs that will literally happen every year.
Further public comment.
My name is Jim Lyson. I've lived in Lewiston for 40 years in Ward 1 at 26 Taylor Hill Road. I'm just here because I think that this council needs to create a resolution to stop what's happening in Gaza. And I know people will say, well, it's a federal issue, it's not a local issue, but our tax money is going to support what's happening over there. And I saw a video today of Dr. Therese Hassad, a cardiologist, and he's a member of the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights. He's a former resident of Gaza, has lost 100 family members to that war that's occurring. And we're talking about women and children, and we are supporting that with our money. And he refused to see Secretary Blinken on his trip over because he thinks that Blinken has the opportunity to create a resolution and a ceasefire, not just a resolution, but a ceasefire. Again, we're funding weapons used to kill innocent women and children, and the death must stop. And so when a resolution comes up, or at least to schedule it for a public hearing, I think that we need to do it, and I've talked to some of the council about that issue. But again, this is not just a federal issue, and I would encourage you to listen to your constituents. If you schedule a public hearing, people will come and talk about this issue, and other people, may understand a little bit better what the issues are. So again, we're funding. We could use this tax money a lot better here in Lewiston, Maine, than it is to create weapons of destruction and killing innocent women and children in Gaza. So, and it's easy to say that you say something good about a Palestinian, you're anti-Semitic. It's like, that's not where I'm at. You know what I mean? It's just that I just think that war is what's happening there is pretty awful. And it's continuing, and we're helping to fund it. So that must stop. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Hi guys, Luke Jensen, Ward 5. Just want to put a plug in for Charter Commission. Even if you guys don't plan on putting it on the ballot until November, please start the discussion now so we know it's going to be on the ballot in November. When I was a sitting councilor, I thought it was going to be that November, but it never happened. Still very frustrating to this day. So please aim for that. If not, then June, even better. Also wanted to put a plug in. We've done a lot of work on I guess making sure the high school is built to last. With the new wing, I mean, we've modernized a lot of things and done a lot of good work, and so I kind of wanted to come and advocate for more funding in the LCIP for the science labs. I mean, like EL is close to the same age as LHS, and they just tore it down because they didn't take care of it. We're doing a great job taking care of LHS, and it's good for probably like another 50 years or so. So if we're going to invest in the science labs, let's go big or go home. I know a lot of times, you know, Maine isn't the land of opportunity. I get it. So a lot of our most successful grads go across the country, other places. I think if people realized how good of an education people got at Lewiston and just how successful a lot of our grads are, there would be no question. We would be supporting more funding for science labs. That and a couple meetings ago, you guys approved some board and committee appointments, nominations, all of that. There are a couple names that weren't mentioned in the council packet at all, so that means one of two scenarios happened. Either you guys knew the names ahead of time, you didn't share them in the packet, and as a result, you violated the Freedom of Access Act. You broke the law. If that didn't happen and you guys were learning those names at the same exact time that I was, which may have been the case, and I'm guessing was probably the case, then why did you guys approve those names 90 seconds after hearing them for the very first time? If it's something you're going to vote on, you need to give your constituents a chance to weigh in, email you guys, get feedback. You didn't give us the time to do that. You didn't do any research yourself. You didn't give the press any time to do feedback. I get that it's, you know, it's local government, you all know each other, there's probably no big deal, but transparency matters, and there's a lot of corruption going on around the country. And so, like, even the press has to have time to weigh in on something like that. Like, you know, is there some kind of business dealing going on between the mayor and one of the nominees? Is the mayor sleeping with one of the nominees, or one of the nominees a registered sex offender? These are things that the public has a right to know. And because you guys approved that so quickly, we didn't have a chance to really go over that. That's not good government. That's not transparency. So I don't think you guys did it because you're crooked. I don't want to give that impression at all. You guys are mostly brand new to elective office. It's going to take some time to learn things. I was not a good public servant until probably about a year into serving, and I've served for about half a decade. So, you know, I want to give you guys the benefit of the doubt here. Just going forward, anything that you guys have to vote on, just rule of thumb, if the public hasn't had a chance to weigh in, vote no, shoot it down, put it to the next meeting, unless it's an absolute life or death emergency. So those are just some things that I think of at home when I'm watching the meetings on TV and I'm like screaming at it, like, why are you voting on that? Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate you guys serving. I know it's not easy, especially in times we're in. So again, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Pauline Goodis. I'm a resident of Lewiston. I want to wish you all a happy 1-month anniversary for being on the council. It's been 1 month. You've had to make some heavy decisions. There's been a lot of things going on that have caused a lot of controversy. I do want to commend the council. I got a lot of feedback last week that everyone at home, or most everyone at home, could hear you because you used your mics. I would hope that you would continue in the future. I have one criticism, though, and I made the comment last week, and I'll make it again. As soon as I left the podium, the mayor and the council president whispered again. And if it's going to continue, I would hope that every member of the city council will bring it to their attention and stop it. If not, maybe we can get a volunteer from the community to sit in the audience every week and have a little bell. And every time the mayor and Mr. Harriman whisper during a meeting, especially when people from the public are talking, that they ring the bell. That sounds very childish. Or else you could go back to what a school teacher would do. When you had two students constantly talking during a meeting and not sharing their thoughts and questions with everyone, they separated them. So if this sort of behavior is going to continue, maybe the city councilors ought to ask Mr. Harriman and the mayor to sit apart so this will stop. It's disrespectful and it's rude. And I would hope that the mayor and Mr. Harriman do not want to be rude. Thank you.
Hi, Ronnie Parody, Lewiston, and I came here tonight to talk about code. Again, I worked with code for over 10 years, especially out in the community as a public health nurse. I can't say enough for Lewiston's code under Gil Arsenal and Dave Hagener. And I just want to say, well, I'll talk when the other thing comes, information when it comes up, number 11 on your thing too. But it's not just businesses, it's your constituents. When I was a public health nurse, I had to come down to code to get heat for people in the apartments, especially on the tree streets in downtown Lewiston. And you know who helped me? Code. They always called the landlord and say, how come there's no heat in the apartment? I can't say enough for everybody in Code. And between Dave Hagener and Gil Arsenault, and I didn't always agree with, especially Gil, and Gil could be rough at times, but I loved him to pieces. They followed Code, whether people liked it or not. So what you're doing to Code is not fair. It's not fair at all, because it's our apartments and houses and stuff in the city of Lewiston that are covered by Code, not just businesses and Da Vinci's. Thank you.
Matt Roy, Ward 3. I guess I'm going to piggyback on the same topic I've been beating the drum for multiple meetings, and follow the former councilor for Ward 5, Mr. Jensen, on. According to the city's website, the membership list for the boards and committees has been updated on January 25th and last Wednesday, the 31st of January. Just uploading the list of appointees is not transparency, as Mr. Jensen said. We are now at the point, especially by the end of this week, where the 14 remaining vacancies per also the city's website are all, per charter, have now moved from the mayor, of course, to the council. And some of them have been, per the list, there's been a vacancy on the Historical Preservation Review Board since January of last year. The Assessment Review Board, which is mandated by state law, and if a municipality doesn't create one themselves, that reverts to the Board of County Commissioners for the respective county, just like county commissioners for unorganized territories, which is more seen up in the county and up in Somerset County also as their local Board of Selectmen. If a resident of Lewiston wanted to appeal their property tax, we could not hold a meeting, because there was only, of a board of 5, there are 2 active members and 3 vacancies happened the week before Christmas of last year. So hopefully the council at their next meeting will start to rectify this, and all the other, dozen other vacancies that are, as of, a bunch of them have been vacant since January 5th of this year, and by the end of the week there's a few more, including on the planning board. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Matthew Egren. I live at 209 East Avenue. Later tonight, our mayor will be asking this council for $15,000 for an unbudgeted expense.
We're going.
I would like to ask.
Excuse me,
that
sir. We're going to have.
Hold on, Mayor. I have my statement here.
This
is not about your budget item. This is about.
If this is about agenda item number 11,
No,
you can
it's
make
not.
public comment then.
It is not.
Okay, please continue then.
I would like to ask you to look at my unbudgeted expense request in the name of public safety. East Avenue desperately needs a crosswalk added somewhere between Webster and Sabattis Street. Traffic speeds are never held or enforced on there. Anyone needing to cross to go to the Farwell School or to go to middle school or high school has to either cross at Sabattis or Webster or take their life at their own hands crossing over. Everyone here remembers that last year we had a Lewiston student hit trying to cross East Avenue. A crosswalk, perhaps with a flashing pedestrian crossing warning sign, like the many that exist around Bates College, would be helpful to all. Not just the children who need to cross the street multiple times a day, but, for example, our postal employees. As a street resident who watches frequent near misses and collisions, I would suggest that the intersection of East Avenue, Warren Ave, and Green Street would be ideal, as it allows direct feeding up to up to Farwell along West Warren. Thank you very much for your time.
How we doing? I'm Adam with president of the Chapter 5 of MSEA, Local 1989 here at the City of Lewiston. I found a quote the other day. It said, time heals nothing unless you move along with it. And I thought, well, that makes perfect sense, right? You can't pursue a new reality unless you can detach and depart from the current one. The MSEA union will not stop. We will not back down. We will fight for what is right and what is good while moving along with it. Our members deserve better from this administration and council. After much discussion, the union has decided at this point in time to not move forward with a no confidence vote for the administrator, Heather Hunter. It needs to be noted, though, however, that this does not suggest nor give support to recent actions made by the administration over the recent weeks, however. If it's time for change, a new direction, we should probably look at the business world. When a company finds itself in a tough situation, the first person that gets a pay cut is usually the company's president. If the situation gets even more worse, the company president will first step down. They don't start by getting rid of regular employees because they don't believe that they're bad soldiers, but they're bad leaders. And just like fish that rots from the head, it should be cleaned from there too by removing the root of the problem. Counselors, remember this. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. With each step forward, let your courage do what's right, what's best for the citizens. Let it echo throughout the city of opportunity. Don't enable an inadequate mayor to project this city as one of smoke and mirrors, but of transparency. Affirm your place in this council and let your tenacity set you apart. You possess the raw power to conquer any challenge that is presented to you and create your own kingdom of success within each of your wards, unleashing extraordinary possibilities for both you and all the great citizens and businesses of Lewiston. Now, Carl, no matter what you do, the truth will always come out, and it will destroy you in the way that you tried to destroy somebody else who is nothing but good. It's time for a new chapter, a new vision for this city. It's time to change the perception that has followed it for many years. And you, Carl Shalene, or shall I say ceremonial head, your actions do not represent what is best for this people, its mission and what is right. The people need transparency. Your constant tantrums with staff and administration, the optics of you and a council president having another agenda, and the disgusting investigations you target code enforcement with, the staff, the MSEA union members, the council, and most of all, the people here deserve better. Carl, you're not Lewiston strong. Thank you.
Further public comment? Public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, I understand we have a consent agenda.
We do. There are 4 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item number 1, order authorizing execution of municipal quitclaim deeds for real estate located at 7 Orange Street, 9 Orange Street, 172 Old Bloody Hill Road, 224 Central Avenue, 86 Summit Avenue, 16 Roslyn Avenue, and 87 Sleeper Road. Item number 2, recommendations from the city clerk, registrar of voters on actions necessary to conduct the presidential primary election to be held on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Item number 3, order allowing notification of special city council meetings to be issued via electronic means. And number 4, amendments to the city business license applications policy regarding the terminology for lodging houses.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Chittum.
Second.
Second by Councilor Harriman. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing on a renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Rusty Bus Brewing Company, 120 Lisbon Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Rusty Bus Brewing Company, 120 Lisbon Street.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Counselor Glant,
Second.
second by Counselor Najin. Discussion.
A question. Mr.
Counselor Chittum, yes.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, there's a other bingo listed on this application, and that's crossed off.
Yes.
Is this an application to hold bingo there? And if so, does the state get involved in games of chance? And
So you're very observant, Counselor. When the applicant submitted it, they wrote down bingo thinking that it fell under the category of live entertainment, which it doesn't fall under the standard category of live entertainment, which is dancing and music and guitar playing and whatnot. That's why they've crossed it out. If they're planning to pursue bingo, which I honestly can't remember off the top of my head if they are or not, you're absolutely right. It would require a state license as well as an additional license from the city. So that's why it's X'd out. That's not part of your approval for tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion from the council? Public comment on this agenda item? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, public hearing and final passage to amend the administrative ordinance regarding the committee structure of the Lewiston Public Art Committee. Requested action that the proposed amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Boards, Commissions, Committees, and Bureaus, Division 4, Lewiston Public Art Committee, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Counselor Chittum,
Second.
second by Counselor Sewell. Discussion? Counselor Chittum.
Mr. Mayor, the subject of this is the second reading of an ordinance change, or proposed ordinance change, that would merely allow the mayor to appoint himself to the Public Arts Commission. While the current mayor, Mayor Shalin, is a well-known proponent of arts and culture and has been an advocate for them throughout his tenure on the council, I am concerned about the mayor having already 3 specific appointments to this commission and then allowing him to appoint himself as well. So I have concerns about this.
Further discussion from the council? If I understand correctly, Madam Clerk, I would be the council rep, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Yes, and for the public's benefit, we were simply changing it back to the original ordinance. It was changed to prevent me from serving on it, and I've asked this council to change it back so I can serve on it. Councilor Glant.
Thank you, Mayor. Does that mean every mayor has to be on it, or does that mean just this cycle for you? Another mayor could say, I don't want to be on it, and appoint someone?
Correct. Yes, it is not required that I appoint myself. Public comment for this agenda item.
Linda Scott, Ward 1. There was a reason it was changed last year, because we had specific conversations around the fact that the mayor would be appointing himself to this committee, and that's why the language was changed, because there was concerns, like that was just brought up by Councilor Chittum, that the mayor would be appointing himself without there being the proper presentation, and that language being changed means any mayor in the future could do that, and he already has appointment for this committee and appoints the people on this committee. That's why it was changed. The only reason it's being changed now is because the mayor has always wanted on this committee. It shouldn't be about what the mayor wants. It should be about what's appropriate for our committees and the appointments that are being done. There is reasons why things are done, and I just wanted you to understand why we did it last time. I thought it was inappropriate. We brought this up with our council, and I think it's important that you understand that. Thank you.
Further public comment on this agenda item? Back to the council. Councilor Najin.
Just to verify, so there's no process in which the mayor would appoint themselves, correct? So basically, you would say, for instance, if it was you would say, I appoint myself, and that would be the end of it?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
I'm talking about, if we allow the mayor to serve on the council, to serve as council on the Public Arts Committee, you can just appoint yourself, right? Is that
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a slot that's a council rep.
Right.
And so.
Which the mayor would appoint.
Yes, correct.
So the mayor could just appoint themselves.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Further discussion from the council? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
No.
Ward 6?
No.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
No.
Motion failed by a vote of 0 to 7.
Agenda item number 7.
Item number 7, public hearing on the city's fiscal year 2025 Lewiston Capital Improvement Program. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on the city's fiscal year 2025 Lewiston Capital Improvement Program and receive public comments.
So, yes, public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to comment on the LCIP?
Matt Roy, Ward 3. At the workshop last month, there was per state law, there's an 80% limitation, which means as printed currently in the LCIP, we're going to have to cut about 18 million from what is currently printed in the book that the superintendent has, and I don't think no one else actually has a copy. Thank you, Jake. Yes, 18 million. But yet, getting back to, the dead horse, I like to keep on going on here. The mayor saw fit for a remaining 2-year of a 3-year term on the finance committee to appoint someone who has no apparent municipal finance background. And as I said at the last meeting, there were 2 candidates who are either former city councilors, former school board members who were not considered, and given that $18 million, the appointment should have been somebody with municipal finance background in city or school board budget.
Excuse me, could you keep this germane to the LCIP?
It is, I'm talking about the 80% women and the 18 million that you as councilors are going to have to cut out of the LCIP along with the school board. Thank you.
Further public comment on the LCIP? Seeing none, that hearing is now closed. Item number 8, Madam Clerk.
Item number 8, order authorizing the transfer of funds from storm drain inspection to storm drain repairs for road rehabilitation projects in the amount of $300,000. Requested action, order authorizing the transfer of funds from storm drain inspection to storm drain repairs for road rehabilitation projects in the amount of $300,000.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Harriman, second by Councilor Glant. Do we have, there we go. Thank you, Interim Director Gagne.
Good evening. I think we're making good progress with the inspections. We're ahead of schedule. And what we're seeing and reviewing the inspections is that we have storm drain and disrepair. So these funds are to ask for enough money to fix the storm drain pipes before we pave the streets listed in the FY24 LCIP.
Discussion from the council or questions? Councilor Chittum.
Yes, this is for storm drains only. Is there a similar program for inspecting sanitary lines?
There is.
And is that in a similar situation? Are we finding sanitary lines that are in need of repair that will ultimately require a transfer of funds within the department's budget?
We are seeing needs of repair, but we're seeing adequate funds to make those repairs right now, so no request is pending.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do congratulate you on the inspection and maintenance programs. This, I think, is merely an inappropriate allocation of funds, if I understand it properly.
In the past, we had kind of a joint inspection and repair type LCIP item. The last several years, we've been trying to break it out and be prioritized and focused. So this is making sure we're spending the money in the right time and the right place.
It's always a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. So this is being transferred from the storm drain inspection account to the storm drain repair account, and is that just because we have, we have enough in that inspection account to, it won't hinder any future inspections or anything?
Correct. So we try to look forward a couple years to paving projects, whether they're funded by MDOT or local projects or any type of partnership. We'd like to get those lines either replaced, spot repaired, or lined. So we're ahead of schedule as far as looking forward for a year or two on the storm drains. And at this point, we're seeing enough need that we really need to get these repairs done, so we're not paving a street and then going back, having to dig it or repair it and on a brand-new paved street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions or comments from the council? Public comment for this agenda item. Back to the council. Anything further, Director Gagne?
Nope, all set.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
And Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 9.
Item number 9, order authorizing the city administrator to execute a perpetual easement to allow for a parking area over the city water line in Auburn for TAC Auburn LP. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the city administrator to execute a perpetual easement to allow for a parking area over the city water line in Auburn for TAC Auburn LP.
May I have a motion, please? Councilor Harriman, second by Councilor Chittum. Please kick us off, Director Gagne.
Thank you. So the developer in Auburn came to us end of the summer last year, just letting us know, and we usually get a heads up on the development projects over our utilities that go through Auburn. This project want to do a storm drain outlet and also do a pave and parking area over the land where our 20-inch water line. Right now, it's not active, but it's land that we may use in the future to rehab this 24-inch water line that was put in it's the original line going to the lake in 1890s. So it's 24-inch cast iron water line. So through September, through the fall, our city attorney, along with the developer's city attorney, looked at developing this easement that you see before you. It's been vetted by both parties. The use on the land it's normal on what we have on our water easements. We have parking lots, we have different amenities. This doesn't seem to prohibit our ability to rehab this line or replace it in the future. So we're asking that it be approved to be able to move forward so this developer can make use of the land around there. And it's a self-storage area, so we don't see any issue with it.
Questions or comments? Councilor Chittum.
Thank you. Is this 24-inch main charged or dry?
It is dry.
Okay. I've looked at the description here. I do not see a legal description for the easement. While it may seem a minor matter, it would be very helpful if we knew precisely what land was being covered in this easement. I'm assuming we have plans for the right-of-way for this 24-inch main, but I don't see either those established on the sketch that was provided by Goral Palmer, nor do I see beginning and end points of the easement. So I would advocate strongly that we have a written easement description prepared by a land surveyor or a plan that shows dimensions so that we can locate this parcel precisely on the ground. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Public comment for this agenda item. Back to the council. Anything further, Director? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
No.
Ward 1, Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Director Gagne. Item number 10.
Item number 10, order to amend the American Rescue Plan Act grant program guidelines to use program funding to support a nonprofit agency to operate a warming center this winter in conjunction with the City of Auburn, to award funding to an agency, and to authorize the city administrator to execute an MOU with that agency. There are 3 items for requested action. The first item is to review and discuss the proposals submitted.
And we have, we have Immigrant Resource Center of Maine here, correct? Yes, okay. And then we have representatives from Cadence Kitchen here as well. So I think what we'll do, just because there's bound to be questions, I guess we'll start with Cadence Kitchen. If you can come to the front here to the table, I guess briefly explain the proposal, and then we'll be able to ask questions, and then afterwards we'll have Immigrant Resource Center of Maine come to the table.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If we could have a motion to allow council to ask for these proposals to be presented, I'd make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, and we have a second. Madam Clerk, any discussion on this motion?
Not yet.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Pass by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you for being here, Kevin. If you could just take a few brief minutes to outline the proposal, and then we will ask questions as they come up.
Perfect. Thank you guys very much.
And if I can have the counselors just let him finish with his presentation before we ask questions.
Yeah, I believe everyone's had a chance to review the proposal and the numbers, so our write-up is 3 minutes or less, so I will go over that and give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions from there. I am here on behalf of Cadence Kitchen Food Pantry, a local 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have been committed to serving the community and providing resources to the unhoused for over 5 years. Our organization takes pride in operating without any administrative overhead and committing 100% of our funding back into programs for the community. Over the past 2 years, we have seen over $500,000 be allocated or requested on temporary warming center services. Yes, we help keep individuals warm, but fall short of meeting client or community expectations when it comes to quality of services. We can't expect individuals to work through traumatic situations when they are provided a resource that potentially creates traumatic situations. Our organization has seen the approach we have taken over the past couple of years and honestly feel we can do better as a city. We need programs, even if they are temporary, that provide value to the unhoused community and work towards negating the stigmas and stereotypes associated. Programs that provide value to the client, operate with community buy-in, and focus on quality of services. At times, it feels like we end up moving forward with proposals because they are the only ones on the table. We want to take this opportunity to say we believe there's a better way and are committed to being part of the solution. We realize there is a current funding proposal on the table to repeat the efforts at Calvary Church with the same host organization for operations. Cadence Kitchen has submitted a formal request for funding to be the host organization for operations. Our proposal will reduce the requested budget, prioritize having an experienced professional staff, and put public safety as a top priority. Over 45% of our funding request is for public program safety measures, and over 83% of our funding request goes towards staffing or security as a whole. Along with the cost savings, our proposal includes a wide variety of additional resources and services that would be available to visitors at the center at no charge. As president of Cadence Kitchen Food Pantry, I would operate as operations director and would hold full responsibility for day-to-day activities. We can also provide service referral opportunities and a direct connection to services for anyone looking to take them. Our organization also operates a full community resource center with immediate access to clothing, bedding, hygiene products, shoes, warming resources, and more. These would all be added benefits to our program that come without any additional expense or cost to the program, but a significant value to the client. Part of our funding request would also include a security presence on site during all hours of operation, We believe a well-run program shouldn't require a security presence, but also realize this is being put together very quickly for emergency needs and want to make sure we have support from the community by prioritizing public safety. Last year, the program exhausted a lot of time and energy from our police department. It also created a significant amount of community concerns around how these types of programs operate. We believe this is an opportunity to build back confidence in the community surrounding these programs.
I guess questions from the council? Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kevin, may I call you Kevin?
Yes.
Thank you. You have proposed $58,240 for Lewiston police presence during all operating hours. I'm wondering if your plan allows for the flexibility of having no officers there from 2 to 4 in the morning, for example. Or is that a misguided notion that 2 to 4 shift, for example, would not be advisable to cancel that?
We have full flexibility to provide the security staffing as needed. Originally, our thought process was a police presence on site. We were familiar with the agency and organization that operated over at the Armory, and we know the police presence there was a deterrent to the activities inside. We also completely understand that sometimes a police presence is an intimidating factor, to the unhoused community. So that's why we wanted to put a secondary security option in there that worked directly with a security staffing agency and provided 2.5 times more personnel on site than the alternate proposal. And that would be funded with the same cost that would have originally been going to the police presence.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question is this a fixed price proposal? Or is this a not to exceed, or is it as expenses are incurred, you would bill the city?
This is a fixed price proposal. Okay. Our request for funding would not exceed $125,000, and we would incur any additional costs or expenses directly as an organization.
Okay, so it is a fixed price then? So
I can guarantee you 100% that we would not be coming back to the council for any additional funding for this project.
Okay, and likewise, there's no opportunity for the cost to be reduced if the services aren't needed. So it is a fixed price rather than a not to exceed?
Not to exceed, yes.
Those are two different things.
We would be more than willing, if for some reason certain costs came in, we're going to be a full open book when it comes to funding sources and allocation. If it comes in that we realize $15,000 less was needed for X, Y, or Z, we would have no problem reimbursing or sending that money back to the city as well.
Well, that's a very favorable offer. I appreciate that. It appears as though it's a fixed price, but you have just stated now that it would be not to exceed.
Correct, and we'd be more than willing to put any of that in writing as well.
Well, that's very much appreciated. I think we've got plenty of cameras around here. I don't think we need to have it in writing. Thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Najin.
Quickly, how quickly could you get this facility stood up? So, for instance, if the funding was given, let's say tomorrow, how quickly could you be in operation?
Our goal would be Monday, I believe, the 12th, so this upcoming Monday. We have a couple cold nights tonight and tomorrow that might drop down around the 21 degrees. After that, until mid-next week, we're going to be right around that 30-degree mark. So it's not an excessive, coldness. Obviously, any opportunity to get them out of the cold is a benefit, but we won't be dealing with our coldest temperatures of the year before we can get this operational.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. I see you have budgeted $4,000 for food, and you mentioned a comment of partnership with Good Shepherd Food Bank and local businesses. So $4,000 over 8 weeks, 7 days a week, that's less than $100 a day. Is that because you plan to get donations from Good Shepherd Food Bank and local businesses, or? how
Yeah,
is
I
that?
believe we allocated originally $500. That's with the estimated access that we have to the Good Shepherd food resources. We're also very heavily involved in the service community. So we see the interactions that the business community has when it comes to supporting these type of programs. For example, the Rusty Lantern convenience stores donate to Pleasant Street Drop-In all of their breakfast sandwiches, their donuts, their pastries. Target donates, resources to Trinity, I believe. Da Vinci's is cooking up 100 meals for the homeless every month. So we believe with our connections to the service community, our engagement and relationships with businesses within the community, that we will be able to provide adequate resources when it comes to food resources. And we believe that we're going into it with more realistic than exaggerated costs when it comes to that category.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess what if those relationships don't materialize and then you come up short for food?
Then we will fit the bill.
You have the ability to do that.
We will raise the funds needed to make sure those resources are available.
Councilor Gallant.
Now, I'd like to ask the city administrator a question first, if I could. The $300,000 that's remaining,
Do you mind speaking to the mic here?
the $300,000 that's remaining, that's just our money, correct, and city money?
That's correct. It's from the funding program.
Originally, this thing was drawn up that would split possibly the cost with the city of Auburn. They have approved the other people who's going to come talk to us. Is there a possibility to reach out? Should we go in another direction to recover some of this cost?
I spoke with the city manager in Auburn, and my understanding is if the council goes with a different provider, that they would schedule a second meeting to support the revision of their vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
So we have here, for staff expense, you have 3 full-time positions, correct?
Correct.
And then on the next column over, it says staff will consist of 3 to 6 rotating staff members. Can you, I guess, explain that? Or what is the staff plan?
The staff plan would be based off of to hire experienced individuals that work hands-on with this community and demographic with service experience. The staffing model, the 3 to 6 staff was a very quick, number to throw out there. We realized that, we have 560 hours, to cover during that time frame with the hourly rate available in our request. And staffing would consist of 3 full-time individuals along with the security presence being the security agency or the police presence as well. And I believe the other request is for 3 staff members as well in the alternate proposal.
Councilor Najin.
This question is actually for administration as well. Concerning the conversation with Auburn, do you know if they would be holding a special meeting or would we be waiting 2 weeks?
They have indicated that they are willing to schedule a special meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Chittum.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. You have a list of guest expectations submitted with the most recent proposal.
Yes.
I have heard rumors, I have no firsthand evidence, that last year there were concerns about firearms. I don't see a firearms limitation in here, and I wonder, is what I've heard, in fact, the situation? Have you anticipated that, and how would you propose to address it?
I am not directly aware of that particular issue as of last year. Our expectations of that program would be that it would be no firearms brought in by any of the clients visiting the center.
And what happens to those firearms if they're not allowed to take them into Calvary Church?
In regards to where would they put them?
Yes.
it's a great question. I'm not sure if either party would have an answer to that. It's a valid question. It's definitely a concern. I would like to think with police presence in the parking lot, they won't be hiding it in a bush or anything outside of Calvary. But I can't guarantee that they won't leave it in any other part of Lewiston before they came to our facility. And I think that would be consistent with Trinity or Pleasant Street or any of the other day programs that consist of and have, those type of rules and regulations.
I would imagine it would be very hard for an individual to give up a firearm, and I'm wondering about how that would work. I don't have answers, I'm just posing questions, and I will pose the same questions to the other proposer as well. Again, this is second or third hand information. I'm hearing that last year there were some concerns about this, and it creates a dichotomy that's very difficult to try and resolve. If you can't carry them into the building, how are you going to deal with that? And if you're going to leave it in a snowbank on the corner of Pine and Sabata Street, how is that going to be dealt with? I just ask that you consider that and factor that into the thinking. I don't have any answers, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
For Councilor Glant.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 10 says guests are expected to keep their space clean. I'm assuming you're calling all the people coming in guests. What about guest? People who want to come visit people. A lot of homeless people, when I visit them and involve them in the community, have friends on the outside who will come visit them. They'll come hang out with them, things like that. They're going to fill out the same form when they come in, and we're going to assume that they're a guest that's staying. Is there, people come in at 10:30 and they want to leave at midnight, and they want to come back in again at 2 o'clock in the morning. Is there a system going to be in place to try to control that, or do you think it's a concern?
Yeah, no, anyone that comes into the facility, whether it's a guest or a guest of a guest, they would all have the same expectations. We don't have the ability to filter one guest or the other. And all due respect to the process, we would treat them all equally. In regards to coming in and out of the facility, once you come into the facility, there is an area outside for smoke breaks and stuff like that. But this isn't an in and out, like open door revolving, come in as you go every hour to get warm and go back out on the streets to do your thing, to come back in, to get warm, to go back out. That's not the intentions of the program. If people are looking for resources for the evening, then they can commit to the expectations of the program for the evening.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions from the council? Councilor Sewell.
What's the capacity for Calvary?
Calvary, I know last year on slow nights, they were probably averaging, 30 to 40 individuals.
What was the max
On the
capacity
max,
allowed?
I've heard it's exceeded 100. I know it's a 2-floor location in regards to, and that's why if we went with a security staff approach, the multi-security agents would be so that we could literally have one security staff associated to each floor.
And will guests of the guests be included in that capacity number?
It is an overall capacity number. Our number one priority is obviously the guests. So we're not as concerned as of the guests of the guests. If the opportunity is there, and it's not restrictive of the program goals, then we're all for leaving that opportunity there.
Thank you.
Councilor Chittum.
Thank you. Councilor Souls raised an excellent question. That is, there must be a finite capacity listed in the code enforcement or the fire department. Are you aware that there's a number that's been assigned to this structure?
Yeah, I do know there is a capacity. I don't know the exact number, but we would obviously work within those guidelines with Calvary Church in regards to any fire code or maximum capacity concerns.
Okay, so when you've reached maximum capacity, the process would be to close the doors and say, we can no longer accept people here now because we're at capacity.
Unfortunately, yes. We work very closely with the unhoused community. Currently, right now, I can say that there's probably 65 to 80 at most unhoused individuals, meaning not on couches, like literally out on the streets and encampments. So yes, I can see the numbers potentially exceeding 100, but based off our hands-on experience and engagement with that community, we do know on average it's potentially 65 to 80 on any given evening.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions from councilors? Yes, Councilor Longshine.
Will you guys be able to provide any additional support to help with the unhoused community?
Yes, we definitely will. We also play an additional role doing homeless outreach coordinating work, with Community Concept / the City of Auburn. So that's a separate functionality that would be taking place, but at the same time, through that work and our normal day-to-day interactions with services, we have all of the direct connections to, the supportive agencies, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, housing, all of the transitional wraparound services that normally assist the unhoused with transitioning off of the streets. We have direct referrals and connections with basically every agency across the board from the standard service provider expectations.
And you will utilize them?
Yeah, absolutely. Ideally, we would love, if the center closes at 8, we would love to try to coordinate getting service providers in potentially maybe from 7 to 8, for the last hour of each morning. We can't guarantee that because we haven't necessarily locked in these commitments, but that would be our goal, would be to get additional service providers and resources on board with coming in and providing resources to these unhoused members.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you very much, Kevin. Fatuma, if I can have you come up.
Good evening.
Yes. Please introduce yourself and then please continue.
Hi, good evening. My name is Fatuma Hussain. I am the Executive Director of the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine. Will I continue, Mayor?
Yes, sorry, please continue.
Sorry.
And then, we'll have you give a brief outline of the plan and then we'll ask questions.
Sure. So we're the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine. We are 22 years old, have done a lot of services in Lewiston. We do provide so many services, but I'm going to focus on the comprehensive housing services that we provide. We provide navigation, that is navigating the housing needs and services, and that means there is pre-tenancy, which means we engage with tenants around what they need. We also do a huge amount of time around landlord engagement. We also provide stability services. Stability services are employment, childcare, transportation, mental health services, recovery, where you want to come from one place to another place, that continuum of services. Here in the Lewiston City Hall, we have a navigator embedded in general assistance, where every client that comes through general assistance, English or not, if they speak English or not speaking English, do come through our navigator. And what we do is provide housing, place them in housing. We also provide, parallel to rental assistance, we provide what's called GAP rental assistance. So GA provides the services that they need to provide, assess where the eligibility level is, and then we supplement the rental assistance with general assistance. We also have a housing program on 124 Canal Street, and that is a number of different staff that provide stability services, navigation, case management. We are part of the coordinated entry. This means it's a data point system where you come in and assess the individual and get into all the points that they need in terms of housing them eventually. We are part of all kind of collaboratives and partnerships to really look at holistic approach to providing services to unhoused and people who are new, people who've been here for a long time, and young people as well. The Immigrant Resource Center also provides gender-based violence services. So we have sexual assault, trafficking, domestic violence, stalking, and dating violence. That's super important to us. It is almost a signature program that we provide primarily because we know that homeless population have, they have victims, they're survivors, and they need those services. And so there's a number of different specialties that we bring to a table. So coming back to a Women's Center, we are the folks who ran the Women's Center last year. And I'm gonna say that we had a lot of issues. We also can say that the Women's Center was set up in a few days. It doesn't happen that way. And so we learned a lot. We feel like we're better suited this year. We can start tomorrow. We know the building like the back of our hands. I have met with the police chief this morning to talk about communication. I've been communicating with the hub coordinator. The hub coordinator is this individual that's embedded in Lewiston Housing Authority whose job is to really connect all of the housing service providers. That is the vehicle to drive referral systems, case management. When you talk about recovery services providers, they're there. If you're talking about mental health services, they're there. If you're talking about food, clothing, health, education, transportation, childcare, anything that will put a person back to where they need to be to improve the person's quality of life. This is a coordinated approach. And so we meet together, and so Julia, I emailed her and said, looks like Auburn has approved half of the expenses for the Women's Center, and that we would like to use the hub coordination to be able to communicate, provide case management. And so the idea is to have a weekly meeting with the police department to ensure that there is communication. The other piece that we did, the adjustment that we did to our budget was to, in addition to having security, we would like to also have detailed time with the Lewiston PD. And so they will give us 2 hours when we close in the morning so that we can get people dispersed and next to getting to the next services and other places. And we'll have about 4 hours Saturday and Sunday to help us with that. And what we've also done is we put a lot of that cost to Auburn's funding because we recognize that Auburn PD obviously is not going to get a lot of the work and the added time that's needed. And so there is a little bit more that Auburn is going to pay to cover for our police department here in Lewiston for their services. I'm going to stop at that because I also talked about this last night at the Finance Committee meeting.
Questions from councilors? Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fatuma, I'm sure I'm speaking for the council when I say that we appreciate very much all that the Immigrant Resources Center of Maine does for those in need in Lewiston, and I appreciate all of the services that you offer to our newcomers. It's much appreciated. I do want to ask you specifically about the differences between the proposal that you submitted to the Finance Committee last night and the proposal you're submitting tonight. Last night you had, for example, a $20,000 line item for Calvary Church. It's actually Calvary Church. But this proposal indicates that the total is on the order of $9,000. Why is there a difference between 20,000 and 9? What happened?
We are going to cover repair internally if needed. And so we're just now counting only the rental amount, which is $1,000 a week. and we are also adding some of that cost back to the police.
So if I'm understanding, IRCM will pick up the tab for any repairs that are necessary to the property out of your own funds?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting. Another thing that I picked up on here was that the rent is listed as $1,000 a week, and then the rent on the first proposal we heard tonight was $500 a week. And I wondered if you could speak to the difference there, or what that is.
So we are in negotiation with Calvary to craft a lease. We have moved on to insure the building, so all of those pieces are in progress. And I should say that this is not an application that came to Lewiston today or last week. This was in the works since October. As you may recall, Lewiston did submit an application to the state of Maine, Maine State Housing, and that was denied. And so this was sort of the almost the secondary step to come to you, and partly because we either go after funding to Maine Housing that will come from where we serve the navigation and we get funded from. And so that's why we're coming here. And so coming back to your question, it is $1,000 that Calvary is quoting for their rental amount, which is per week.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor Najin.
Just really quickly, you had mentioned Julia, and just to rewind back to that, that's the Androscoggin County Homelessness Hub Coordinator, or no? Is that not the? Do you have any connection with the Androscoggin County Homelessness Hub Coordinator at all?
Are you talking about Julia?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, so Julia is Hub 603. It's one of them. I can't remember. We work very closely, and I should also mention that we're quoting 65 people who are on the streets when we did the pit count.
Mm-hmm.
Half of those people, we collected that data. And so, we do a lot of work, back to your point, and sometimes we don't sit here and talk about what we do. A lot of work which we don't take credit for. We don't have to mention what we do. It's speaking for itself.
Councilor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see you again.
Yes.
Similar question, guest to guest. If people are coming in who don't look like they're staying, what is your policy going to be for that?
We have a lot of policies that were a bit lenient last year, but those policies, including you mentioned firearm, we do have those policies. And one of the things that we talked about this morning with the police is, what do you do this? Can you do this? And so there is a list of things that we have to work with and abide by, and so we don't necessarily allow guests of guests. This is for the unhoused. There were a few people who came in because, and this sort of took me back, there were people who are not necessarily homeless, but don't have food or don't have, dinner or whatever. And so they will come in and they will have food and then they'll go back. But the people who came to us were the 65 people on the streets as we speak and more, who came because they needed a warm place, they needed a warm meal, and they needed to be safe. And that's who we're going to serve.
Councilor Longchamps.
Hi, thanks for being here. So I am wondering if you could help me just understand why it was that you guys were so lenient last year. Why would you be so lenient last year?
I think it was new to us.
Okay.
It was new to us, and quite frankly, nobody wanted to start a warming center in Lewiston, and we stepped up.
No, I get that.
And I think, we had and we still have folks who really have a lot of issues. They have mental health issues, drug use. I will invite you to stay there for a whole night, 10 hours straight.
No, I did
No,
visit.
no, I want to come back to you. I think people do not understand. It's one thing when people are on the streets and they're on their own. It's another thing when you congregate 80 people. You want to know the capacity? 114 people on the first floor. What we looked at was 40 people upstairs, 40 people downstairs. When you look at the spectrum of where people are in terms of their well-being, their hygiene, their needs, their mental health, their historical trauma, that spectrum is extremely large and very broad. And you're in crisis all the time. You've got people who come in and they're very upset because they lost something. You've got people who come in and you look at them and they say, "Why are you looking at me?" You know, we'll ask people to come in and sign their names, and they'll give us all kinds of names that we don't want to hear or see. And so you know that when you're talking to these people and you're serving them, they're in a lot of crisis. And so we needed to understand where everybody was. Towards the end, we were very strict. We were not lenient throughout. However, I think it took us a while to sort of wet our feet and understand what we were doing, which is natural, right? You don't want to jump and judge people and be rude. And a lot of them were rude to us. But in the end, I can tell you that we had people who were helping us clean up, people who were helping us serve, people who were saying, "You know what, that person is a jerk, but we are going to help you out." We kicked out, there was this guy who made a lot of fights. And so we gave him a chance, and we gave him a second chance. And on the third time, we had to kick him out. Not only did we kick him out and not let him return, but he also lost his belongings because the Lewiston PD will work with public safety to collect stuff outside the building. We rented U-Hauls several times to clean up, the filth that was outside the building. And so we were lenient, we learned it. And I don't think we want to be lenient, right? We want to follow the policies we have. We borrowed our policies from the Augusta Warming Center. They've run, that for a long time, and so there are quite a bit of policies around searching and making sure that people don't bring in weapons and that drug use is prohibited. And if you are intoxicated, if you can contain yourself, you can stay there, but you cannot disrupt people. And that the well-being and the safety of every person is actually taken care of.
Because it was so new, did you take the opportunity to stay there throughout the night, or was it just your staff there? Did you stay
Myself?
overnight? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I worked many nights. And there are people in the audience who worked many nights too.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Chittum.
Thank you. I'll ask you the same question I asked the previous proposer. Is this a fixed price proposal, or is this a time and materials not to exceed proposal?
Oh, absolutely. We manage a lot of different funding, and when we say this is the cost, this is the cost. We do not exceed, and if we have unspent funds, we will return them to the city.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Harriman.
Thank you. What would be the date that you could start?
Tomorrow, if awarded. And I should mention we were funded by the city of Auburn.
Thank you.
Further comments from the council? I really, really appreciate you stepping up to run it last year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're right. Nobody wanted to step forward, and you did. And I understand that there were lessons learned. And, I realize there's a lot of hand-wringing after the fact, but I want to make it clear that this warming center was 100% successful in that nobody froze to death. And that was the clear goal when we started. And I really appreciate you and your staff. Thank you so much.
May I say one more thing? We had one of the nights, and I mentioned this last night, one of the nights, one of the days we had a blizzard, and it was, we had to cook outside the facility, and I was delivering food, and so I came in, and you can't see, nobody's on the streets, and it's wind, and it's very white everywhere, and so as I drove and I parked right closer to the entrance, there was this guy who was buried in the snow, and and nobody knew that he was there. And once I recognized what was going on, I got help from inside, and we called the ambulance, and we revived him, and he survived. His wife was inside; she didn't know he was outside, and so I think winter is real in Maine, and those of us who are very vulnerable do need not only people who are willing to do that, but like you said, I stayed there nights after nights to make sure that it wasn't chaotic, and that we had people who sometimes will come in and not want to do anything, and I often, used my outside voice and put my foot down and told people, you are not going to do this. And they listened to that because I can tell people what to do.
Further questions or comments from the council? Thank you, Fatuma.
Thank you.
At this point, before we come back to the council, we will go to public comment for this agenda item.
I have a question for Tuma. Can you answer? Last year, there was a lot of needles around the property and stuff like that. And what's going to happen this year? The Public Health Committee back in 2016 or 15, we set up with the police department, and maybe Mr. O'Malley can remember when we set up the disposals for syringes in the city. We got them at different parks. I think there should be a disposal for used syringes or syringes on the property at Calvary, because I heard there was needles and everything like that. I don't know if that's true, Fatuma, but I think we need a needle deposit on that property.
Yeah. That's very true. What was happening is there wasn't needles in the bathrooms as much as there was needles outside the building. And part of it is because when we closed the warming center, it was very difficult to get them out of the building and the vicinity. And so that's where a lot of the needles were. But if we have police presence and we have that support to get them to the next service provider, whether it's Trinity and other places, then we are going to control that. And I do agree, we did have disposals, but they were not, some of them used them, some of them didn't use them. Again, it is a year that we're going to not be lenient and enforce a lot of these rules.
Could I make another suggestion as your partnership? Being a former public health nurse, have you thought, Fatuma, and you've worked with me and everything as public health nurse, can you get the state of Maine public health nurses involved with the shelter too? And I think that would help if the nurses came in and helped with the things in there, because what we did as public health nurses. I'm just putting that up for a partnership to go to the state and have the public health nurses out of DHHS help with this shelter. And they can also do TB tests and things like that too, if you're worried about vaccines and other things. Just an idea.
If awarded, there's going to be a meeting immediately with service providers, and that means, we have healthcare providers and a number of different partners. So we're going to broaden the circle a little bit than just housing services, and not only bring health, but food and other folks as well.
Thank you, Fatuma. Further public comment.
Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, my name is Stephanie Gelinas, and I'm a resident of Ward 7. I just want to start off by saying that, it's exciting to hear some of these questions and answers, and, the time is here. And I would say in the name of humanity, I implore the City Council to accept a proposal for standing up a warming center for our community. We have gone far too long without one. And, be accused of being a bleeding heart, that's okay. It's the right thing to do. As I sat in Councilor Glant's seat, especially during my second term in service, I heard one person after another come to this microphone to offer public comment, to provide testimony, to offer rationale, even begging us as public servants to do something for the population of people without a home. And while I understand that there's a lot of public concern regarding the past effort put forth by Community Concepts and the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine, invalidating that it had its problems, I'm frustrated with how much perseveration there is on how this was such a debacle, as opposed to just looking at the situation, learning from the situation, and doing it differently. You know, we can get stuck talking about emergency attempts that were made last year, you know, that maybe weren't perfect, but they did in fact save lives, and we need to move on. I think the main thing is that we do something tonight. I did not come tonight to support one proposal over another, but I do want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the representatives here tonight, you know, are here representing their entities. It's a noble thing, an important thing for them to be doing. This isn't a competition. In fact, there's no question in my mind that there's potential for collaboration, purposeful and meaningful collaboration. I mean, clearly both of these individuals who spoke tonight have a heart for the unhoused. There's something that they want to do. So I feel very strongly that proposals considered and voted on definitely need to, as described by both professionals, need to include those wraparound resources. So I come here, you know, tonight, as so many have come before me, to ask that these proposals be taken very seriously and that action be taken very quickly, again, in the name of humanity. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Dan. I'm from Auburn as well as Lewiston. I was here a couple of weeks ago. Thank you, City Council people, for putting this together and making this happen finally. I looked and listened to both proposals, and you know, it's apples to apples and maybe apples to bananas. They're both very well-versed proposals from A to Z, from where they stand. But there's an element that I want to discuss that's a little bit different, and it's the human element. And the human element, when I'm looking at these proposals, two things. For those who know, I'm out there every morning, and I'm out there all evening. At least 5 days a week, usually 7. I speak between 30 and 65 homeless people a day. I just put 6 people in a hotel today. That's what I do. There's reasons for that. Only the Lord and I know that piece. But the human element that I'm talking about is that when talking and having my ear to the ground, is that, it's, you know, Mayor, yes, the mission, the objective, nobody freezes. But it's being treated like a human being. And having my ear to the ground as I do, one of the things that I hear all the time is they want safety. They want safety. And I think the proposal that I heard first from Caden Kitchen, the safety factor was a lot stronger. The second piece is that I know where Caden Kitchen comes from, and I know the people and who he deals with. And I know the connection he has with the homeless people, as I have with the homeless people. And they feel safe. They feel heard. And I think that piece can only happen because it's real. It's not something that's on a piece of paper that says, here's our program. That's real. And they deal with many other agencies as well. And I know how they are respected by those agencies. And I'm part of that. I will put my time and energy into Caden Kitchen, and I want to let you know that that's where my support is. Thank you. And why.
My name is Rebecca Adamson. My pronouns are they, them. I live and work here in Lewiston. Ladies, gentlemen, and other members of the council, homelessness is a choice. It is a choice by societies and the governments they put into place to ignore the needs of the most vulnerable in their communities. The ongoing homelessness crisis in Lewiston is a result of policy failure on the federal, state, and city levels. For many years, the vulnerable people in our community and their allies have asked this council for resources and this council either ignored, undermined, or outvoted those requests. A proposal for a 24-hour resource center was sent to a committee for further study, but those recommendations were set aside. Instead, legislation was put in place to curtail those recommendations for the indefinite future, such as no low-barrier shelters could be established within the city limits without prior council approval. There was a cap placed on the total number of shelter beds within our city limits, instead of the much-needed increase proposed by them. In addition, the other shelter proposal that was put in place by a local housing agency missed the grant funding deadlines, so that shelter wasn't available. The proposal by that local housing agency also to establish a transitional living program at the site of the Ramada, where the COVID shelter had been, was also stymied by members of this council. There has been, and will continue to be a will in this community to help those experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity. Community members, such as Kevin and Fatuma, and many of our unhoused neighbors work every day in day shelters, drop-in centers, street outreach programs, and community kitchen to assist our neighbors with warmth, hot food, legal aid, immigration advocacy, and access to things like bathrooms, clothing, laundry vouchers, and showering facilities. These efforts and this work will continue here in Lewiston with or without the support of the council tonight. But I urge you all to show solidarity with the will and effort of your constituents by voting in favor of a temporary warming center. This will provide much needed shelter and warmth to our most vulnerable neighbors during these hardest months of the year. Thank you.
Matthew Eckering, 209 East Avenue. There were two very different proposals put before the City Council tonight to operate this thing. They are both well thought out, but there is a difference. Caden's Kitchen was substantially less expensive than the other proposal within our packet that we got to read. I was also glad to see that both of them this is our fixed cost. We're not going to ask for any more money if we run over. And Kevin's like, if we don't have the money to feed them, we'll make it up ourselves, which is really impressive. I'd like to say that I hope that Caden's Kitchen gets the proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, Bob McCarthy, Ward 2. I'm here in support of Caden's Kitchen's proposal. I read through both of them, and I think that Kevin's proposal, where it deals more strongly with the security aspect of it, that it's the one that we should go forward, that you should go forward with, pardon me. As a counselor during, at the end of last session, the last warming shelter, I was able to talk to a lot of the police officers that had to deal with the shelter on a nightly basis, and it was not a pretty situation. So I understand that it was their first time and they've learned certain aspects of it, but I think that they stumbled so badly last year that I think we need to take a look at Kevin and give him a shot. Obviously, down the road, there's going to have to be a more permanent situation on a regular basis. And by allowing Kevin to run it this year, it'll give the council and the city staff how it ran last year, how it ran this year, to consider who's going to run it the next time. So with that in mind, I wholeheartedly support Kevin's proposal. Thank you.
Hi, Linda Scott, Ward 1. So there's a few things that I would like to talk about. First off, I want to thank Fatuma and her organization. She is absolutely correct. Nobody else stepped up last year, and she stepped up and did the job that needed to be done. And we should be thanking her profusely for that. But we also have to recognize, and I understand it was the first time, but the number of phone calls and the things that we as counselors last year had to listen to about how this shelter and the performance that was done and the situations that happened, I have always been an avid supporter of having a warming shelter, a homeless shelter, and I think that we need to do 100 times more things for our homeless community and many folks in our community. But as a former city councilor, and the comments that I got last year, I think that it's important that that be part of this conversation as well. I truly believe that included in the packet, I didn't get to see it, I'm not sure that you had it, but I think that our city administration should have definitely included it. And it was the number of phone calls that were made to police department for that shelter last year, was the number of complaints that were received from neighbors, from businesses in the area, and the difficulty that was around that warming shelter last year. I got phone calls from folks that invested in 2 apartment buildings down there. They bought the buildings, they're renting out the buildings, they're doing work, and their trash cans were broken into and ruffled through on a daily basis when that warming shelter was going through. They had things broken into off their porch, stolen off their porches. We need to consider our homeless in this community, but we also need to consider all the people that live around there and what's going to happen around that shelter. It's an important piece. It cannot be forgotten. We don't just do it again and put another Band-Aid on it without thinking about this thoroughly. I really appreciate the fact that Kevin came forward speaking specifically to those concerns about last year. I don't know which proposal is the best one, and I can't tell you which one to choose. I just ask you to recognize and understand that all of those things need to be thought about, and that there should already be a discussion being had about all the things that transpired last year and how we're going to make sure that this what happened doesn't happen this year, because you're going to get the phone calls I did. And it's not just from the neighbors around there, it was the businesses around there. There were serious issues. There was traffic situations that happened, there was overtime by our police department, and those thoughts, all those things need to be considered when you make this decision. Thank you.
My name is Nancy Craig. I did not plan to speak tonight, but I feel I need to. I am the coordinator of City Mission and have been for the last 2 years. City Mission has been an entity, and Calvary, active in the neighborhood for many, many years, 50 years actually, 20 years for City Mission. City Mission is based in Calvary, at Calvary United Methodist Church. As such, we actually do not have an active role in the overnight warming center, but we are the host. Last year, Mayor Shalene came to us asking us if we could host. Apparently there were at least a couple dozen threads put out asking for host agencies or host buildings, and Calvary was the only entity that replied and said, yes, we will host this. Like everybody else, we had no idea what we were in for, but we knew that it was the right thing to do. Teaming with the IRC, Community Concepts, administered the funds, the IRC staffed it. We basically had a supervisory position. In my mind, the main problem is that for many, many years, Lewiston and Auburn have had an attitude that we don't have a homeless problem. That was the attitude in Auburn for a long time. The attitude in Lewiston was that one of, if you build it, they will come, which is not true. You know, the more services, or if you have a homeless shelter, people will come from far, other states, other cities. Not the reality. People are also pointing to the fact that we don't want to become another Portland. We will become another Portland because there's no end to the root causes of homelessness. I totally agree that those root causes need to be addressed. I also agree that I believe it's rather shameless that a city the size of Lewiston, Auburn, a metropolitan area the size of Lewiston, Auburn, does not have a 24-hour wraparound service shelter. We're embarrassed that we can only be a warming center. We can't give folks a bed. We can't give them a mat on the floor. Because of ordinances. So we, being a Christian organization, wanted to help and do whatever we could. I've heard a lot of rumors. I heard that people said that as far as activity around the building. The homeless people that frequented our warming center would have been in other parts of the city as far as police calls, police activity. It was kind of more convenient for them that they were all at 59 Sabata Street rather than being scattered around the city as they usually are. I would like to see data saying that there were more calls, more trouble by having folks in the warming center. We did throw up, Fatuma and her group and Calvary threw up the warming center basically in 2 weeks with no experience on our part. This year, as Fatuma said, we learned a lot. Church members, members of the public, we did learn a lot. We were put, and Fatuma's group was put in the position of a disaster waiting to happen because of the quick stand-up of this warming center. I also am disappointed that this was not addressed the week after the warming center ended, that the council, and I have to temper that greatly by saying this is a totally different council, of which we're very heartened by, and we expect great things. We understand that you weren't seated in time to tackle this issue earlier, but it's time to make amends and to do things the right way and to pay more attention to our homeless citizens who are citizens of the city, who deserve the same services and rights and privileges as our housed citizens. What else can I say, Fatuma?
If I can get you to wrap up your comments, that'd be great, Nancy.
Yes, yeah. We are whoever runs the warming center, we are more than welcome to, more than willing to welcome them in, do everything we can, and we relish the thought of networking and working with different agencies. The more, the better.
Thank you. Further public comment? Back to the council. Please continue.
Good evening. My name is Jean Goria. I am a resident of Lewiston, and to make things above board, I am an employee of the Immigrant Resource Center. And obviously, I would like a proposal to be considered. But I think I'm here more because what I've heard, it is not what happened at the warming center. I work there. It's not my function. I work in finance. But I was there. I volunteer, actually, in both, when we had to open the one in Auburn, too, because of that cold snap that we had. I work at both centers. Yes, there was unruliness, and I think it's naive of anyone to think that a population that has so many issues is going to behave like the people at the choir in church. It is not going to happen. There are issues. They are going to happen. We were entrusted with this situation. The management was supposed to be somebody else. There was an issue. You guys can find out about it later on. And all of a sudden, it's like, hello, you know, you're a bat. And we did. We stepped up to the plate. We did it with our staff. We had people that work incessantly to get those services done. And yes, there were police calls. And you know what? A lot of the times, it was actually the residents. There was a phone that they could use there that called because they had some sort of a dispute with somebody else within, you know, our guests that were there. So are there going to be problems? Absolutely. Is the place going to get dirty? Understand, we are dealing with people who live on the streets. What your standard and mine may be it will be completely different to them. What you would consider disgusting, absurd, nobody's going to do it, to them, unfortunately, is their lifestyle. What I observed myself from the days I was there were people that were grateful to us, were people that say, thank you so much just for the warm cup of coffee that I'm getting today. Are there people that have problems? Yeah, we had drug addicts there. We probably had alcoholics. You could see someone that was having the shakes because we don't allow alcohol there. And were there problems? Yeah. Have we learned from the problems? Yes. But I'm really shocked because what I'm perceiving here is more of a bashing to an agency that when nobody wanted to do it. We came in, we did it. And guess what? We never complained. There is a lot of things that we did it that you would never know. The people that came up came to work no matter what, overnight, left their kids at home with a sitter just to provide the service that were needed when nobody else in Lewiston, in Auburn, wanted to provide the service. So not everything that was said is what happened. Thank you.
Further public comment? And back to the council. Councilor Chittum.
Mr. Mayor, first of all, let me stress that this is not a question of whether a warming center will exist or not. That is a done deal. The question is a difficult one before us because we've had two proposals from the heart of two different organizations. What's appalling to me is that we're sitting here in the first week of February addressing this issue now. This will be on the council agenda in the summer this year. The difficulty we have is that we are in the unusual position sitting here on the council of having to evaluate proposals. That's normally a task that's done by staff who are expert and prepared and ready to evaluate proposals on a very specific set of guidelines. We have a completely anomalous situation here. We have never done this before. I have heard both proposals, and I am prepared to make a recommendation for one over the other. That does not speak that there is a better quality of proposal. I will tell you in a moment why I've made that choice. I recognize that there is a lot of baggage that came along with the rollout of the warming shelter last year. My perspective on that is that this is a great opportunity and lessons have been learned. Whoever does that, especially on the 11th hour, is going to run into problems. And I agree with some of the speakers that it's not fair of us to say that the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine should bear the brunt of the blame for this. They stepped up, they did a marvelous job, they answered the call. That's to their credit, as I see it. I'm going to make my decision purely on the basis of cost. I'm an engineer, numbers are comfortable to me, so I am going to look at the cost to the taxpayers. I see that both proposals are relying heavily on networks. I see that both proposals are truly concerned about the plight of the homeless, and they have done everything that they can to address those concerns. It's difficult to compare one and the other. So I'm going to fall back on the areas that make me comfortable. I'm comfortable that both agencies would provide the services that the homeless here in Lewiston need, and they would do that with a heart and with compassion. My decision and my vote is going to be to go to Caden's Kitchen with the understanding that the vote in Auburn last night to fund roughly half of this project would still carry over to Caden's Kitchen. Its proposal was roughly $60,000 or $50,000 short of the proposal from the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine, and that is the sole reason for my decision. Thank you.
Councilor Najin.
I'd like to reiterate some of the points that Councilor Chittum had made concerning the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine coming through last year and filling a gap that was that nobody wanted to fill, and I think there was a huge learning curve in that. the unfortunate thing is, again, we are faced with two different proposals from groups that I feel are very, very passionate about this issue and are able to handle the challenges that we have. One of the things I'd like to say just real quickly is I think we should workshop a review of shelter ordinances, and we should also possibly have a discussion in workshop of a drop-in center, a standing drop-in center. But I also would like to say that it is February 6th, and we should have had a shelter open the first week we were in. It should have been open before we were seated. And so for that reason alone, and the fact that Fatima and her organization can get this shelter up and running in a day, I'm going to support the proposal from the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine. But I wish in the future that these proposals were open to the public in advance, and we had opportunity to get many different offers, almost like an RFP.
So as I look at the proposals and listen to both Cadence Kitchen and Immigrant Resource Center of Maine, you know, I understand that on paper, Cadence Kitchen is coming in cheaper. However, I'm just concerned that it's perhaps not accurate. You know, for instance, Immigrant Resource Center of Maine has listed out other costs that will be incurred. We're talking about fringe benefits, FICA, and I'm concerned about food costs. And I understand that Cadence Kitchen has a network of businesses that they can rely on, but what if that doesn't materialize? I'm just concerned that the costs are perhaps a little more accurate with Immigrant Resource Center of Maine. Further questions or comments from the council? Councilor Longchamps.
Yes, so I will say, I did get to speak with the gentleman that runs the Calvary. And from my understanding, the food cost was $2,000 a month. He said he did the shopping, so.
Anything further, Councilor?
No.
Okay. Further questions or comments from the council? Councilor Chittum.
I get a second shot. I did want to add that there was a comment made during public session that with experience in both organizations, if Cadence Kitchen is awarded this proposal for this year, then we will have two organizations that have had experience in the very same activity. That will give us a better opportunity in June, when we review this matter again, to put forward requests for proposals from both, and we will have two qualified organizations.
More comments from the council? Or questions? Councilor Chittum, did you have something else?
Mr. Mayor, well, I move that we, what's the next item on this agenda? I move that we award funding to Cadence Kitchen.
I'll second that.
Have you noted that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. The motion is to award funding to Cadence Kitchen.
And Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Chittum, did you have something?
I would move to approve the order to amend the American Rescue Plan funds. If the clerk would like to read that,
Sure.
I will make that motion.
Sure, thank you, Counselor. The motion is to approve the order to amend the American Rescue Plan Act Grant Program Guidelines to use program funding to to support a nonprofit agency to operate a warming center this winter in conjunction with the City of Auburn, and to award funding to Cadence Kitchen, and to authorize the city administrator to execute an MOU with the agency.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Chin, followed by Counselor Gallant. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item number 11.
Item number 11, order to fund the mayor's independent survey of business interactions with code enforcement in an amount not to exceed $15,000 from the miscellaneous services account. Requested action, order that the City Council hereby approves an appropriation to fund the mayor's independent survey of business interactions with code enforcement in an amount not to exceed $15,000 from the miscellaneous services account.
May I have a motion?
In order to discuss, we have to move it forward, right? Or we don't?
Or the matter dies.
I think it's important to have discussion on the subject, so I move to, I move.
I believe Counselor Najin has moved the question. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion and to make sure we hear from the public.
Yes, council discussion. I will start off. So we heard a lot from the business community at the last meeting, and or from some members of the business community, and I think it's important to hear from the business community in a impartial and comprehensive way. I think a survey of businesses that have had interactions with code, permits, inspections, etc. It will uncover process issues that could be then corrected, and it's a proactive approach, and it sends the right message to the business community. I think with these results, it creates a baseline to create a baseline to measure future feedback, and as I was saying a second ago, we'll be able to possibly uncover trends and then possibly find ways to make the process smoother here for our businesses. Questions before we go to public comment? Yes, Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. So there's a couple issues that I see with this particular proposal. It seems like, for one, to only have it apply to the code enforcement department, to me seems like a targeting of that department. They're not the only department that works with the public and that deals with the public. There are also, they do interact with businesses, but they also interact with landlords, with homeowners, with other folks. So it seems like it would be limiting the amount of information that we could get to only have it be code enforcement interactions with businesses. The timing of this also seems, like an issue. It lends itself to the perception that it's targeting a particular department, which I also have an issue with. And then the last piece is that if we're asking them to remember their interaction with code enforcement from whenever the last time they interacted with them was. That could be months ago, it could be a year ago, and typically people only remember the very good things and the very bad things, and more often than not, the very bad things. So I don't know that we would get a really accurate survey of interactions by doing this. I kind of think that something going forward and forward-looking might be more appropriate. People would get perhaps a survey invitation the day after they have a visit from code enforcement, or the same day, And hopefully that could apply to other city departments as well that interact with the public. So those are just my concerns with this particular item.
Councillor Najin.
Generally, I would let the public speak first, but I just want to say a couple of things. The first part is we were just considering, and we've moved to a certain date forward, cutting funding for the sanitarian position, and now we're talking about spending $15,000 on what is basically an investigation from my perspective. If we're moving forward as an organization, as a city, and being proactive, if we want to have discussions about possibly an ombudsman's office or having surveys that go out for all departments after services are provided, I think that's excellent, because there's definitely work we can do. There's things that we can improve upon. We all know that. I think one of the focuses we could start with is creating a great city to work for, and then a great city to do business with and in, and then a great city to visit, and that would create a great city to live in. And so it's the approach that we should take that in my opinion, would address the issues that we have with our processes that will allow us to be able to attract and retain employees that want to work for the city. And so, yeah, that's just my take on it.
Councillor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to endorse what Councillor Harriman has said, that putting out a survey asking specific questions about the Code Enforcement Department obviates the whole series of questions about, what do you think about the Public Works Department? Are they plowing my streets properly? What do you think about the General Assistant Department? Are they rejecting me out of hand because I haven't supplied the right paperwork? It opens up an entire door of questions. We on the council have been contemplating a citizen survey, and that I believe is in the works, that asks some of these same questions on a voluntary basis. I'm not certain we've worked out all the details yet, but this would also be an opportunity for people who are incentivized to comment specifically on the codes department. This survey is not going to approach people who have gone out to dinner and gone home and not gotten sick because the Code Enforcement Department has done its job. The council was never consulted when this survey was proposed. This comes to us officially for the first time as a request for $15,000 appropriation or appropriation of funds that, to my knowledge, have not been budgeted in this year. I am opposed to this. I think it's ill-considered, I think it's rash, and I think it's rushed. There are other ways that we can obtain this information, and I'm not in favor of spending this money to examine businesses' perceptions of one city department. Thank you.
Further comment from the council? We will now go to public comment for this agenda item.
Adam Jones, Chapter President, 5 MSCA. Hats off to you, Harriman. Way to change the optics there. I commend you on standing up and calling it for what it is. I think you guys as a whole, and ladies, have an obligation to the citizens to provide them the most transparency as possible throughout this process. And I think the union strongly feels that the mayor's recommendations for this are quite disgusting and pretty unethical. You have members that do their job every day in the code office. And I think what the public needs to understand is that these complaints, if there is any, not only come to administration, but people have the ability to make complaints to the state of Maine through MUBEC and the CEO certifications that they all have to go through. They all hold state licenses. They're held to an oath. You're always going to have a fan and you're going to have a critic. Do I think that the approach and delivery sometimes could be looked at and we could always be better at things? Absolutely. But I think you could also be better, Carl. I think that if there is a survey that's considered, that being union positions that are being investigated or targeted, I feel that the union needs to have some involvement in the design of that survey, because what does that look like? What are they trying to project? And in this case, I really feel like you have a mayor here that's trying to stir up some dirt, maybe because of recent actions. The union doesn't support this survey. It supports its members for doing their jobs. It supports the fact that you have a council that is doing its due diligence, asking the right questions. And again, it's hard to sit here and see members targeted and attacked because of personal bias or personal opinion. You all are doing your jobs well. I support the removal of this survey off the agenda. I don't think it's money that needs to be spent in that way. I mean, we're up here talking about warming shelters and homeless shelters. I'm sure those people could use that money a whole lot more. So, Councilor Harriman, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for changing that optic. And if you ever need someone for lunch, let me know.
Hi, Ronnie Parody, Lewiston. Again, I disagree with the mayor on this, and it's funny, it comes out in the paper before he even discusses this survey with the city council. And that's what bothers me. Remember, city council, you're the one that makes the policy, not the mayor. The mayor is a weak mayor and should only do what his job description, he tends to go over his job description. But I want to tell you about code again. I'm going to give you a story. I went to a house in a cold winter day in Lewiston on a tree street, and the mother had no heat in this apartment, okay? She had a small newborn baby and young children, and she said she tried to call the landlord all weekend and did not get any place with this landlord. I immediately called the landlord, because she did have the number, and the landlord started harassing me and threatening me on the phone. So I called code, because I had code on my cell phone all the time. I was working as a public health nurse, because they always helped me. And the code officer called the landlord and told him, you better do what Ronnie Parody says. Anyway, what happened is she got the heat. Now, I ran into this many times during the 10 years I was on the streets in Lewiston and everything. And my clients were mostly refugees. 90% of my clients were refugees who did not know their landlords, but I was able, another Friday afternoon at 4:30, I go into an apartment, no heat. Again, they're new refugees. They didn't even know who their landlord was. I didn't know who their landlord was. 5 o'clock, I go over to code office, talk to Tom Maynard. Tom Maynard called the landlord and got heat for those people. So code does much more, and Mr. Mayor, if there's a survey, you better survey the landlords too, because it's not just the businesses that deal with code. It's all of us as residents. I'm sorry, you're stepping out of bounds.
Good evening. My name is Pauline Goodis, and I'm a resident of Lewiston. I wonder why a survey needs to be done, because the mayor had an ad hoc committee on economic development whose final report, was due to be filed with the city December 31st of 2022. There was a subcommittee made on that ad hoc economic development committee, and it was called the Subcommittee on Planning and Code. There's only one agenda. There are no minutes of the meeting. other than on May 19th, which was 10 days after the Planning and Code Subcommittee met, that one of the members, her name was Jen Hogan, and actually all the members were Jen Hogan, Gabrielle Russell, Larry Pease, Dave Hediger, and Gary St. Laurent. I have the agenda, and the agenda addresses everything the mayor has said is wrong with code enforcement. So where is the report? I'm sure that the city council would love to see where that report is. And I will give the clerk, if she would like, and she can make copies of the first agenda. And some of the items are explore possibilities to streamline the process, discuss the greatest success, what's working with code and planning, discuss current challenges for developers, architects, business, and residents. Where's this report? It was supposed to have been done December of '22. There are no minutes, there's nothing. What is the mayor hiding? What is the city hiding? Where is the report? Ad hoc committees have tended to be something the mayor is doing to get his agenda through. And it's time that the 7 of you city councilors sit down with the mayor and say, look, you're not the king of the city of Lewiston. You are a mayor, a very weak mayor. You councilors run this city, not the mayor. And it's about time that you all set up and say, we want this information. Was it ever furnished? I took a hard look at the city website today on ad hoc committees. There's one on community safety. There's no agenda, there's no minutes, and there's no meeting times. These meetings are supposed to be public. Again, what is the mayor trying to hide from the citizens of this city? We pay enough in taxes, and a lot of people were here last week. There are people here tonight. And I know I chastised the council last week for not speaking in their mic. They're doing it, and they're doing it tonight again, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate that my councilor, Mr. Chittum, is standing up saying, let's get this right the first time. Let's take a look at what's going on and what we really need, and what do we really want to waste our money on. And it's not doing a survey, but the mayor had an ad hoc committee that was supposed to have a report filed December 31st, 2022, and I'll give the agenda to Kathy.
Further public comment?
Linda Scott, Ward 1. So this is the reason I came out tonight. Quite frankly, I didn't want to have to be back in this building so soon. I personally feel that I probably should have been here the last few meetings with everything that I have watched and seen on TV. I don't know what's going on, but I got to tell you, I'm quite frustrated, I'm quite shocked, and I honestly feel that we have a new council being taken advantage of a little bit here. When I read this on the agenda tonight and I saw business interactions with codes, question mark, question mark, question mark came in my head. Excuse me? If any survey is done, it should look at interactions with all departments, not just code. $15,000 for one department looks more like an investigation versus looking at how we may do things better. With all the drama recently that has happened within our code department, this looks more like a witch hunt in one department alone, and in my opinion, this is totally inappropriate and uncalled for. Our code department may need some changes and upgrades, but is this really the way that we go about doing this? It's no wonder to me that we have staff and employees worried about their jobs and their future here in Lewiston. I'm getting phone calls. I shouldn't be getting those phone calls anymore, folks. We have great staff that works for our city on all floors. We have great staff that works on the 3rd floor particularly. How are we making them feel? Are we making them feel valuable, or is the business community more valuable? My personal opinion, it's our staff. They're the ones that are doing all the work, and we should be commending them every moment for the hard work that they do. They should be the ones that are involved in the process of any changes or things that need to be done. They are following policy that we as a council, previous councils, and this council are putting in place. They're doing their job. I don't think that this has anything to do with helping finding out what may or may not need to be changed by doing this survey. So again, it looks to me like a witch hunt for one department. I encourage you all to vote no on this survey. Thank you.
Billie Jane Cook, Ward 5. As a taxpayer, I'd like to know exactly why we need to spend this money on the survey and how this survey will be conducted. Will all businesses get a survey? Who is more likely to complete that survey? Those that have a complaint? If that complaint were valid, wouldn't the city have already heard it? Do you think businesses that have no gripe are less likely to respond, thus skewing the data? Or is it the hope to use the skewed data to accomplish the agenda that we aren't privy to what you are seeking? Knowing that this stems from the agenda item last week to get out of the business of sanitation inspections, I ask why. What is driving this? Are you saving taxpayer dollars by eliminating the position, or are you just trying to get the city out of the business of being the bad guys so that businesses can't threaten to move out of the city? The fact is, the state got the complaint, and the state would have closed the restaurant down. We all know that. In other words, the end result would have been the same, but the restaurant would not have had the ability to threaten to pull their business out of the city if it wasn't the city's fault, which ultimately it wasn't. But it could be perceived that way because the messenger is the one being shot for doing their job. While I agree that it's important to take the pulse of interactions, I'm not clear that this accomplishes getting an accurate pulse or getting skewed data to enable a hidden agenda from being justified. Honestly, if you asked me what made Lewiston hard to have a business in, my response would have nothing to do with code enforcement. Codes and rules are part of having a business. What makes it hard for me to have a successful business is the amount of folks that trash my property, use it as a bathroom, shoot up on my property, and even die on my property. In fact, the other week when the man died across the street from me, my husband and I had a conversation that can be summed up by saying, I've never been around so many dead bodies since I moved here. That is what makes Lewiston a hard place to do business in. Better use of $15,000 would be to find another 99 projects like that and start to put in a 24-hour resource center and stop worrying about warming centers and cooling centers and how we're going to shift people to the daytime programs and have one place where they can be to get their resources, and that's where the money needs to be spent.
Matt Roy, Ward 3. Per the agenda packet, we're calling this an independent survey of business interactions. And per the mayor's statements that was quoted in the Sun Journal and other sources, this was going to be conducted by the city administration. Now, last I checked, in Merriam-Webster, city administration doing a survey of the city staff is not considered independent. Again, as Mr. Jones points out, which he forgot one thing, this is an investigation, and per charter there are certain criteria that need to be met. 6 councilors would need to agree. And I'm getting the sense this is going to die a miserable death, the same as the change for the Public Arts Committee. We only can hope. Thank you.
Did you want to say something, Administrator Hunter?
Yes, I would. I just want to make it clear that the charge that was presented before us is to seek an independent private organization to administer the survey. That is not going to be conducted by the City Administration Office.
Well, since I didn't use my 3 minutes, and I didn't technically sit down, but again, that is quoted in no memo that's in the packet. Again, this is starting to remind me when I was on the school board and Bill Webster would drop 100 pages of supporting documentation at the meeting and expected us to vote. That is not transparency. This is not how governance works. And then the city Mr. Mayor, the city administrator wonders why there are some of us for the last 2 years of beating a drum on a charter commission. Our city, the charter as written, is 44 years old now. It needs to be, it's as I have stated, excuse me, many times.
Can you please keep your comments germane to this agenda item, or this agenda item is not about any charter commission?
Again, but it underlines the whole point of the lack of transparency that city administration has had for decades, that sees the council as their rubber stamp. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Luke Jensen, Ward 5. Just want to reiterate a lot of the comments made before. I mean, by any definition, if you look this up, this is an investigation. I know some of you guys mentioned that, and according to the city charter, I think it's section, 6.12 or something like that, it requires 6 affirmative votes. So if you guys do, by somehow, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but if you only pass with 4 votes, I truly hope somebody would challenge it in court, because any reasonable person would agree that this is an investigation. It's just disappointing, because if you're a city staff member, you probably have the worry now that you could get let go and then the council could retroactively fund some kind of survey that could then justify retroactively your firing. And so that's a terrible thing for a work environment to be in. I mean, it's very bad optics too, to put that on. I do want to thank Councilor Najin for actually kind of putting a motion forward so we could actually speak on this, because I did have a question. In regards to all of this, after, there was the issue with Da Vinci's and Mr. Hediger's, not renewing of his contract, about a week after that, something got on your agenda to end the service that we have with the state inspection, right? That was a week after. Who put that on the agenda? That's not protected information. That's not confidential. That's nothing executive session. My goal is to leave this room tonight knowing that information. And if I don't, I will have very little faith in the city government. That is a question you guys can answer. Someone here knows the answer of how that got on the agenda. Why was it put on there before there was a public workshop? That the public could give input. You guys just renewed that contract not you guys, the previous council did last summer. Why all of a sudden have things changed? Because as member of the public, I have not gotten enough information to justify that. So before I leave here tonight, I really want to know who put that on the agenda. And if it wasn't one of you 7 councilors, you guys are not running the show. And remember, it just takes 4 of you to put your foot down. If you guys have to, vote against adjournment tonight until you get that answer, please. I also do want to I guess put in a plug for city staff, because I mean, I know I look young. I spent most of my young life, about half of it, coming to these meetings, watching on TV, even being on the youth council back in the day. I'd say one trend that I see that's been continuing, and I'm just as guilty of this, is council after council has not been able to provide any kind of economic direction for the city. Very similar to like if you have a back office of a basketball team, they do a terrible job drafting. They don't give you any good players. The coach is not good either. Or let me take the coach out. The players are very bad. Assistants are not great. And then you put a coach in, aka the city staff, and expect them to do wonders with it. And so I think a lot of the reasons that we don't have that economic direction is because of the way the city charter is designed and the way our city government is set up. I couldn't imagine being a city staff member and how frustrated it must be. And especially when you see like a business that's leaving, it's not their fault. They didn't create the economic conditions in the city. We're just a dying mill town that never reestablished themselves 20 years when we should have. And so, I do think you guys try and do what you can to make sure you support staff in this. I mean, that's definitely the most important thing. And at the end of the day, it's us politicians, myself included. We need to make change in the city.
Good evening, Bob McCarthy, Ward 2. I just have a couple of short comments. One, I take offense that this was put on this was proposed unilaterally by the mayor and not discussed with the council. I think that was totally wrong, and I think if it would have been discussed with the council ahead of time, it never would have made it this far. So I think the mayor overstepped his bounds on that, like he does on numerous occasions. The other thing is I think this is a survey looking for cover for decisions that have already been made, and I think that just adds to the poor optics of everything that's happened the last month or so. I think it will go a long ways to creating a hostile work environment for the city employees, because if they can find a way to shaft the code enforcement department, they can do it anywhere in the city. I don't think that's the intention of administration. I think that's intention of one person in this room. And for that, I think that person needs to be held accountable. Thank you.
Further public comment? Back to the council. Questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I call the question.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
I'm sorry.
Councilor Chittum, seconded by Councilor Gallant.
Councilor Gallant, thank you very much. So the motion before them is to move the previous question, which would shut off debate and then go to the immediate main motion. So Councilor from Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
I'm sorry, can you
Sure.
repeat that again?
Yes, absolutely, and I apologize because I forgot we have not done this motion yet as a new council. So Councilor Chittin made a motion, and it was seconded by Councilor Gallant to move the previous question. Move the previous question means if that motion passes, that debate and conversation on the pending main motion stops, is done, and then the next immediate item is to vote on that main motion. So basically, if you're voting yes, you are saying, I want to stop discussion on this item and move right to the vote. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, Counselor from Ward 4 is a yes, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor from Ward 5 is a yes. Counselor from Ward 6?
Is a yes.
Thank you. Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
And Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0. And again, that was to move the previous question. So now, the motion before you, and I'll just read it for clarification, is ordered that the City Council hereby approves an appropriation to fund the mayor's independent survey of business interactions with code enforcement in an amount not to exceed $15,000 in the miscellaneous services account. So if you're ready for the vote, Counselor from Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
No.
Ward 6?
No.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
No.
Motion failed by a vote of 0-7.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item number 12. We are now up to reports and updates. Councilor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance Committee met last night. We did meet our new person. She showed up, and we got to have a full committee now, so we're appreciative of that. We did, in fact, vote to send the warming shelter back to all of us. We didn't feel comfortable with two people making a decision this critical and with two different things out there. We also are sending a letter to the council for dealing with the LCPI and our recommendations.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. School committee met last night. We, let's see, we had our student representatives there, which was really great. We had 2 ninth graders from the high school, and they were very informative. It was great to have their perspective in the room there. We also voted on a few field trips, one to the Camden Conference, one for the Skills USA for LRTC, and we also funded the mock trial team going to nationals, which is very exciting. We also discussed remote days during inclement weather, and there was a pretty universal agreement that we didn't want to go down that road, and that's about it for school committee. Thank you.
Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Auburn-Lewiston Airport Board met a week ago. We began reviewing the preliminary budget, which will be submitted to the 2 cities in time for them to consider it in their deliberations. We also authorized the director of the airport to begin negotiating with a private contractor not to exceed $50,000 to prepare site plans so that additional hangars could be built with a pre-approved footprint. We felt on the board that that was an appropriate move, and it offers the Auburn-Lewiston Airport an economic competitive advantage.
Further reports and updates. Madam Clerk, do you have the names list, the appointments list?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you asked us to report out the names and committees of all the residents who've been appointed in basically the month of January up through the present, so I'll just read those for the record. For the Airport Board, Mark Blay. For the CDBG Committee, Billie Jane Cook, Monique Roy, and Eliza Alexander. For the Finance Committee, Robert Bisson and Ifra Sasidsi. For the Historic Preservation Review Board, Caitlin Lampman and Kevin Mishu. For the Housing Committee, Roger Bernier, Katie Lozzi, and Sajia Rashanga. Lewiston Housing Authority Tenant Representative, Muhadeen Libra. For the Community Forestry Board, Robin Payne. For the Library Trustees Board, Ed Barrett, Tatiana Shurjenko, Marissa Deku, and Strawberry Pinkham. And for the Planning Board, Alexander Pine, Lucy Bisson, and Mark Roy.
Thank you. And I saw we're still looking for applicants for some committees, and I noticed that the announcement went out today.
I don't believe the announcement has gone out
something.
today. We sent it to administration so
I see.
they can
Okay.
get it out. So just for the record, Mr. Mayor, we are looking for additional applicants for Assessment Review Board, Board of Appeals, and Historic Preservation Review Board, were the three that you asked us to include in the press release.
Perfect, thank you. And that will go out, you think, in the next day or two?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further reports and updates? We're now up to 13, new business. Do we have any? Councilor Najin.
I would just like to, basically, there was a presentation earlier tonight by Thompson's Point regarding the fundraising and banner, and they had mentioned the efforts of administration and staff during the horrible events of October 25th and afterwards. And the current council was acknowledged. I would just like to point out that 6 of us were actually not here at that point in time, and we greatly appreciate the work of everyone who was in these seats when that horrible event occurred. So just wanted to bring that up. Good job.
Councilor Herman.
Thank you. As Councilor Najin mentioned earlier, I'd like to see a future agenda item on, or not an agenda item, but a workshop on going over our overlay district for homeless shelters, going over the ordinances, and the buffers around other uses.
Further new business.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, could we just do a quick update on elections?
Oh, yes,
I apologize.
please.
We're getting lots of questions on it, especially after Saturday's cover story in the newspaper, so I just wanted to clarify if I could for the residents. So Tuesday, March 5th, Maine is holding our presidential preference primary election. Obviously, it's held every 4 years by the nature of it. Maine participates in Super Tuesday, which a lot of states around the country do. This is going to be Maine's first semi-open primary, and I'll describe what that means in a minute. All voting citywide for Lewiston will take place at Longley School Gym across from the Coliseum. Polls will open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Absentee voting is now available. Absentee voting kicked off statewide yesterday, so absentee ballots are available now through Thursday, February 29th. Voters can call the city clerk's office to have one mailed to their home, come into the office. All that information is available on the website. What will be on the ballot for the March 5th election? There will be 2 ballots for the March 5th election. The Democratic Party ballot will have 2 presidential candidates, and then the Republican Party ballot will have 5 presidential candidates. There'll be no other candidates on the ballot, no other referendum issues. The sample ballots are on the city's website. The ballots do have ranked choice voting. That is optional for the voters if they want to rank all the candidates. The number one question we get is, if I only vote for one candidate, will it count? And the answer is yes. The main question, of course, we're getting is, who is eligible to vote in this election, since it's a semi-open primary? Residents who are registered voters and enrolled in the Democratic Party will receive the Democratic ballot. Residents who registered to vote and enrolled in the Republican Party will get the Republican Party ballot. Residents who are registered to vote and enrolled in the Green Independent Party, Libertarian Party, or No Labels Party will not be able to vote in this election simply because their party is not presenting any candidates for that office. That is about 2,800 registered voters in Lewiston, so we really want to get the word out to them. For the semi-opened aspect of this state election, a resident who is registered to vote but not enrolled in any political party at all can vote in this election. They do not have to enroll in a party. They simply just can show up at Election Day or order an absentee ballot and request a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot, and they will be provided one. That is about 8,800 registered voters. So again, they do not have to enroll in a political party because of the new state law changes. They can simply request a D or an R ballot and they will receive one. If voters who are enrolled in a political party other than Democrat or Republican and want to vote in this election, they need to change their political party by the statewide deadline of Friday, February 16th. They can do that by coming into the city clerk's office or submitting a voter registration card available on the city clerk's website. I know that's a lot of information, so I encourage people to go to the website or to call our office for more information. Basically, we just wanted to get out the deadline, the statewide deadline of Friday, February 16th for folks enrolled in the Green Independent, Libertarian, or No Labels Party. If they want to vote in this election March 5th, they need to come in and change their party enrollment by next Friday, the 16th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Chittum?
Yeah, just to clarify, Madam Clerk, they need to change to either Republican, Democrat, or unenrolled. Is
Or
that correct?
unenrolled, correct, yes.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to move to executive session.
Sure. Item number 14, executive session to discuss disposition of property of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city. Requested action to enter into an executive session pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes annotated Title I, Section 4056C, to discuss disposition of property of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Harriman, seconded by Councilor Gallant. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thanks for watching. Good night, Lewiston. We're heading into executive session, and we will not be back. Have a wonderful evening.